Hello everyone, you know what? They said it couldn't be done, or maybe they said it shouldn't be done, but doesn't matter. I'm back with another spoiler talk for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. This time we're tackling Season 3, the Inhuman season. And I'm really excited to get into this, because this one and the next season are probably my two favorite seasons of this whole show. I love the Inhuman stuff, and I love the Ghost Rider stuff, and even the AI stuff that they do in Season 4 after that. But since we have a lot of episodes to cover, I can't really talk too much about this outside of the fact that last season we had the fact that the Inhuman stuff was basically spread into the ocean, and that is basically what we have to deal with in this season. And also we had the fact that Gemma got taken by the big rock, but we'll deal more with that way later, a lot later than I actually expected. It doesn't happen immediately. We'll deal with that one, you know, in a couple hours maybe. Who knows how long the spoiler talk is gonna be. I'm just recording episode 1 right now, so let's get into it, starting with the fact that there's a man named Joey who has metal bending abilities, or metal melting abilities, kind of. It looks like whenever he touches something, it's like acid gets thrown on it, and it just like it evaporates basically. But he's running around being scared. Everything is going horribly wrong as usual, with the fact that when people discover their new powers. And then we got these soldier people, or like these black ops people. I don't know who they are. We'll learn more about them later. But they go after good old Joey here until he finds himself in an alley, and he gets rescued by the squad, mainly Daisy, Hunter, and Mac. They get him back to the ship, and we learned that we learned this through the subtitles, at least on Disney Plus, where it's like the woman who runs the mystery organization is named Rosalind, and then in the episode it's like, who is that woman? It's like, but the subtitles said it was Rosalind, and it looks like potentially her organization is killing people. We'll get back to that one as well. So initially Joey has a difficult time coming to the understanding of this, but as Daisy explains it, he starts to have a laugh and be like, I can't wait to tell the boys at the bar. Yeah, you're not gonna be able to, because the fact you're not gonna be able to return to your old life. And when he's like, oh, but I want to go back to my old life, they turn on the TV and it's like, and that's why you can't go back. The world is now afraid of you. Also, Bobby is covering for Fitz, who is looking for a man named Yusuf because of the fact that he has a monolith scroll, and he wants to use that thing in order to be able to somehow get Gemma Simmons back, who, like I said, was taken by Big Rock. However, Daisy, sadly enough, cannot make really headway into Joey's case, so she's like, we need Lincoln, because he's the one who got her through her, problematic Inhuman phase. And also Coulson is gonna go after, together with Hunter, gonna go after this Rosalind woman. And I actually like the Fitz stuff that happens in this episode, where he just like, he has a backbone right now, because this is true love, my friends. But he goes there, he goes up to Yusuf, he's like, look man, I don't care if you kill me. You either give me what I want and I'll give you that, or you kill me and you don't get what's in there. So let's go about it. And then he opens up the case. He's like, yeah, these are the same splinter bombs that got the other guy killed. It's like, well, then I'm gonna use it. But it turns out it wasn't, because what kind of an idiot would give bad guys super powerful tech? So instead, Fitz grabs the thing and escapes. I love that where he just like goes away. Oh, that was fun. Anyway, Coulson and Hunter, sadly enough, walk into a trap. And then later on, as the two are talking, Coulson and Rosalind, they learn that there is basically just a mystery killer out there, a third party, if you were to say, because of the fact it's like, well, you've been killing them. It's like, no, we haven't. You have been killing them. No, we haven't. It's like, then who's killing them? Well, turns out we'll see that bad boy at the hospital, because of the fact that Lincoln doesn't want to go with Daisy and Mac back to S.H.I.E.L.D. And then we have this big guy who attacks, who's later on, I think, named Lash, if I remember correctly. But he attacks the hospital because Lincoln is not using his powers yet. So he tries to use his powers, which means that his life that he has built for himself here after the end of the last season, yeah, that one's kind of gone. So they attack this mystery killer, but the mystery killer, sadly enough, escapes. Lincoln leaves as well, and will still not go with S.H.I.E.L.D. And then Mac and Daisy need to get out of there, because technically those people are hunting Daisy as well, because she's also an Inhuman. So then to end the episode, we have the fact that Hunter wants to go after someone, and let's be honest here, we all know that it's Grant Ward for what he did last season to Bobby. And also, Fitz finally comes back to the base. He has the scroll, he opens it up, he tells Coulson like, look man, this is my last hope, okay? And Coulson was like, yeah, but you said the same thing, you know, after Ant-Man, technically, about the Hank Pym. Maybe she was micro-sized, but she was not, which I love the fact that this episode is just full-on referencing Avengers Age of Ultron and and also Ant-Man. By the way, this season takes place after Ant-Man, but I'm reviewing it right now because this is where the ending of the season takes place in the timeline. But I like the references to the other parts of the MCU. But he opens the scroll and it has one word on it, and that is apparently death. And then he goes over to the monolith after Coulson leaves, and he just starts punching the thing and yelling like, "Do something!" And it looks like Gemma is truly dead. However, the post-credit scene, as these episodes have, revealed that Gemma actually is not dead. She is on this really kind of cool-looking planet. Look, man, being stranded there is probably horrifying, but I will say it looks really cool. But she's on that planet running away from something, and that's basically where the episode ends. And like I said, we'll get more into the Gemma stuff a little later than I expected, because I was kind of hoping for that to happen sooner, but it's gonna take us a couple episodes in order to get there. It's gonna take us until episode 5 before we get to the Simmons stuff. Also, kind of forgot this, but May left as well. We'll be dealing with that one as well this season. Alright, before we get into episode 2, I got a little bit of a confession to make, because the fact that it's actually been about a year since I saw the last season, because of the fact that I kind of stopped after I was done with the Defenders. So I stopped in 2024 with the Defenders, then like waited a year, and then picked up Civil War, Black Widow, Black Panther one-shots, and now I'm back with these characters. So it's nice, you know, it feels like I haven't seen them in a while. Anyway, episode 2 time. So the squad rescues Fitz from the monolith as he's still punching the thing. They learn it, they go in there, pull him back, close the door, and then the monolith activates. So we almost lost Fitz, which we cannot have happen. However, this is a good thing what Fitz did. Because of all the punching and stuff like that, he has some weird sand on him. And that is proof that that is a portal to an alternate planet or alternate universe or whatever. Let's just say a different planet. And we need the S.H.I.E.L.D from earlier on in season 1, I think it actually was. Maybe it was season 2, but I think it was actually season 1. I'm just gonna say season 1 just for me. Also, Ward is having a fun ride with a guy, and he wants to learn the location of a kid. I'll go over that plotline right now. Let me just quickly just make sure that that plotline is gone. So basically, he searches for a kid, which he finds on a boat. Turns out it is Von Strucker's kid. Yes, the same guy from Avengers Age of Ultron. And initially, he wants the codes in order to get the money from Von Strucker. However, when Von Strucker actually fights back, that is when Ward reveals he actually wants to rebuild Hydra, and he wants Strucker's kid, whose name is Werner, to join him. And that's basically that storyline done. So the gang goes over to the Asgardian, who is in prison because of the fact that he can hold a lot of liquor, just not all of it. And he had a little bit of a problem. And also out there, they're searching for aliens and stuff like that. So to be honest, the safest place for the Asgardian is right here inside of this cell. However, Coulson's like, yeah, I'm not playing games. I need your help. Either you're gonna help me or I'm gonna tell everyone where you are so they can pick you up and kill you or something like that. I don't care, because it's one of our own that we're dealing with. And he's like, alright, fine. And he breaks open the door and he tells the guards he did it. Which I thought was funny. And also, Gardner has been called in for Joey to reassess him. And Joey apparently is not ready for the Secret Warriors that Coulson really wants. And also, May is playing golf and she's staying with her dad. And eventually, Hunter tracks her down for help. She says no, but her dad talks to her and convinces her that she probably should go. So she decides to join in. However, the Asgardian guy sees the symbol that meant death. And he's like, I've seen this in England before. Because that's how the episode starts off, in England, where we got this like guy going into the monolith. So we go to England over there. And also in England, we learned that the full sentence is death by punishment, which, to be honest, I would have liked it if it said death by Punisher, but that's just a me thing. So eventually, Coulson finds a secret place and he goes inside with everyone else, and in there they find this really old machinery, and when they activate it, they learn that this is actually built to control the monolith and also the portal. So let's bring in the big stupid rock, and they put the rock in place, activate the thing, and everything kind of starts to go wrong because the machinery is really old. And also Daisy heard this really resonating sound that kind of just started to fry her brain. So as they are trying to repair the thing, Fitz figures out, wait, this whole thing is basically a gigantic speaker in a way, because of the fact that sound is what activates the portal. So if we can get the right sound, we can open up the portal, and Daisy, she can just quake the portal open. Perfectly fine. We don't even need all these stupid machines because we just have Daisy. So that's the new plan. We're gonna have Daisy open up the portal, and then we're gonna send in a drone in there to get some footage from the other side to see maybe what it looks like, and also maybe if Simmons is alive. So Daisy opens up the portal once she figures out the frequency, and then instead of the probe, Fitz jumps in because of course he does. Love makes you an actual buffoon. So he jumps in, gets to the other planet. He walks around, kind of struggling obviously because there's kind of like a storm happening, and he's like, Gemma, until eventually he hears Fitz, and it's like, oh, there she is. So they get to each other. They try to hold each other's hand. However, Daisy can't hold the portal open any longer, so we need to get her back. So they activate the retracting thing, and it looks like Fitz might let go of Simmons by accident. He can't hold on to her, and then boom, the monolith is destroyed, and Fitz and Simmons both reveal that they have returned. We got Simmons back, which is something that I actually forgot happened. So we got her back, and then afterwards, later on, she wakes up very scared. We'll deal with that in episode 5, and she then goes over to Fitz and puts her head on his lap. And then to end the episode, we have the fact that Strucker Skid is going to join Gardner's class, so that is gonna involve some problems, a little bit of an infiltration thing going on, and I'm very excited to be back with the cast, and also very excited to see where this is gonna go. So in episode 3, Lincoln runs from the ATCU, which is apparently what the baddies are called. Well, kind of baddies, but we'll get more into that one later on. Don't you worry about that one. That was kind of like a big point at the end of the episode. And also Gemma's adjusting from being home, and apparently in the other planet she was being hunted by something that will be the main villain of our season, by the way. Just a little bit of a spoiler, but it's a spoiler talk, so I'm allowed to do that kind of stuff. So we need to get Lincoln. So how are we gonna do that? Well, luckily enough, back in hospital, Mac put a tracker in him. So yeah, Daisy kind of goes and says that to Lincoln, so that's kind of a bit of a problem. He fries the tracker and runs away. It's like, come on, we had him. We could have had him. Whatever. Also, I kind of forgot to say this about the last episode, but Hunter and May are trying to get into Hydra in order to get to Ward. And apparently the only way to do that is through a fight club. However, the fight club is sort of a trap, but at the end, Hunter does kind of get away into Hydra. So that's nice. So Lincoln calls a friend who apparently got him off of suicide a couple of times before. So it is someone that who should be trusted. So he takes him home, and Lincoln is like, look, man, I need your car, and I'll pay you for it. Simple as that. He's like, yeah, sure, don't worry about it, okay? Don't worry about it, okay? How about you just take a rest? You can take a shower, you can grab something to eat, don't worry about it. Mi casa, su casa, you know that whole story. Then afterwards, he goes and grabs something while Lincoln is on the couch, and then he sees the news, and is like, oh god, Lincoln is an alien. And he calls the number, and instantly becomes super terrified. And then when Lincoln tries to explain, he's like, dude, I just need the car, and I need to leave, okay? The dude has a heart attack, and dies right there on the spot. So that isn't really all that good, is it now? And then he calls Daisy for help. And while this is happening, Phil Coulson wants to have a meeting with Rosalind, and that meeting will go wrong eventually. And also, Lincoln calls Daisy for help. So Daisy and Mac go over to Lincoln. Phil Coulson goes over to the beach to meet Rosalind, and let's see how these two stories connect to each other. So Daisy finds Lincoln, and she tries to talk him down to come in and all that stuff, and it's kind of working. Meanwhile, Rosalind tells Coulson, the president set up the ATCU, and we need to actually show some results, so I need Lincoln. And then we get the reveal that she also knows about Daisy because of the cameras in the hospital, so it's either or. So Daisy's like, gets Lincoln to come in. However, then Mac is like, we gotta hand him over to them because of the fact that, well, it's either, you know, it's him or you. Simple as that. However, Lincoln escapes, so then it becomes her turn to be captured. And then Mac is like, oh, that's not happening. And Coulson's like, look, I'll give you something more valuable than Daisy. Don't worry about it. And apparently she accepted because of the fact that the ATCU leaves after that. And what is something that he could offer? Himself. He's giving her his resources in that sense. Basically, from now on, we are gonna be working together with the ATCU. So let's see how that one pans out. And also, the reason that Coulson did this is because the fact that he is absolutely sick of fighting the government in that sense. When the government without S.H.I.E.L.D. will will make so many mistakes. So maybe this is the best shot that we have at the government not making any mistakes, okay? Also, throughout this episode, Fitz is trying to get Simmons to connect back into the real world, and he is having a tough time. And apparently, he had a date planned with her a couple of months ago, and he's kept that reservation for months, by the way, until Simmons came back. So they go over there, and Simmons just starts to cry. And then in the post-credit scene of this episode, we learn that Simmons wants to go back to the alien planet. Why? We'll learn about that later on. But she wants to go back, so that's gonna be a bit of a problem. And that was basically the whole episode. So in episode 4, we start the episode off with a couple of Inhumans just living the best lives. And apparently these Inhumans were actually from the last season area. They are not newly created since the end of the last season. So that's nice. We see some Inhumans from the past. I mean, they even name drop Lincoln, so they know about that stuff. Anyway, the redhead from last season barges in and is like, hey, yeah, there are people are hunting us. We need to kind of move. But then Lash shows up and kills all 3 of them. But it turns out the redhead's powers from the last season was multiplication, if you don't remember. And one of them is actually, or I guess the prime one, is on the ship with Coulson. So yeah, Coulson sends in his team in order to, well, mainly Daisy and Mac, in order to go after Lash. Also, we have Bobby and Fitz, who are gonna basically clean the scene in that sense, gonna get all the DNA and all the samples that they need. So as they are doing that, Bobby finds some hair in the hand of the redhead, and it turns, so we got some DNA, and then we get a bit of an issue with which bag it goes into, but that doesn't matter. Meanwhile, with Daisy and Mac, they are searching for Lash but can't find him, and then open up a door, and it turns out that the ATCU is here as well, and we are officially working for them, which causes some difficulty, of course. But because of this DNA sample, we learn that Lash, he's not named yet, he gets named in this episode, don't worry about it, but we learn that Lash is actually an Inhuman, and apparently the people, they got an email, which apparently had like a virus on it that tracks them, so maybe that is how Lash was able to get them. And also, there's an IT guy that developed it, and maybe he's Lash, so they go with the ATCU to go over to him in order to be able to clean this up. Also, Rosalind was a little bit upset about the fact that Coulson did not really fill her in from the beginning and only called her after Lash's attack had happened. Also, Hunter finds his way into Hydra. However, it is, of course, get into the back of the car, like in the trunk of the car and that kind of stuff. So, but he finds his way into Hydra. That's good. I'm proud of him. He did a really good job, and that storyline is also gonna end this episode. But because of the fact that May doesn't really have any information from Hunter, she goes to Coulson instead in order to ask him for help. And also, apparently, between her and Garner, the one who left was actually Garner, which is surprising, but apparently he left. So that is why Melinda May was a little bit mad, but now she's left, so it's kind of even. At least that's what she said. So we go over to the IT guy in order to see what he is, and apparently he turned it into a Inhuman tracker. Actually, he, sadly enough, is not Lash, but he is helping Lash. But yeah, he gets a rash and he gets an incredible migraine when he's close to an Inhuman. So yeah, not everyone gets the cool powers like quaking or electricity. Some people just become basically just a tracking device, simple as that. And this tracker guy actually gives us the name Lash, so that's nice. We now officially have the name, even though I've been using it since the beginning, but I don't really care. So the ATCU takes the tracker guy in, and Coulson convinces Rosalind to allow Daisy and Mac to go with as well. So they go with as well, and they are going. However, Lash then attacks and kills the tracker guy. However, Daisy, in her bit of a conscience state, she's a bit dizzy, sees in the shadows that Lash turns himself back into a human, which will come into play, I don't know, maybe in a couple episodes. Not this episode though, sadly enough. I mean, I know who he is, but let's leave the surprise for later, shall we? But at least she got that information. And also, Coulson goes after Ward, because we may have an actual location. So Hunter gets to the base, and then he meets the leader. So but before he turns out, he's like, hey, Ricky is now my real name. And then he turns around, grabs a gun, and he's ready to kill Ward right there. And then a big shootout happens, and then May pops in, shoots a couple of guys, and then joins in on the fight and is like, Coulson, you need to get here now. And it's like, well, yeah, about that. That's not really gonna happen for about 20 minutes. We will be there in 20 minutes, but you kind of need to hold off. And I'm like, this is an active shootout. This is not gonna last another 20 minutes, okay? Either they're gonna be dead or Ward is dead. Either way, someone's gonna die in 20 minutes or Ward escapes. That's also an option, but that is not an option that we can afford. He will not escape. Dang it. He escapes. However, Ward actually has someone on Garner. You remember Von Strucker's kid. So if Grant Ward doesn't get to escape, Gardner's gonna die. So Melinda May's like, alright, we need to stand down. And Hunter's like, no, I'm gonna kill him. So Hunter charges, ready to shoot him. He shoots him in the shoulder, I think it was, or in his back, either or, doesn't matter. But he shoots him. However, sadly enough, Grant Ward is able to escape. And then Melinda May is very mad at Hunter, like really mad, because that could have cost Gardner's life, which it looks like it actually did, because of the fact that the Von Strucker kid blows up the gas station that Gardner was at. So maybe he's dead, maybe he's not. We'll have to find out later. And in the post-credit scene, we learned that Gemma needs Fitz's help, and in the next episode, she's gonna tell him everything. Because also, I think it was actually in this episode where he learned that she was researching the monolith. So she's ready to tell him everything. But that is gonna be about 40 minutes and basically the whole of the next episode. So let's get into that. So let's find out what really happened to Gemma over on that planet, because that's what this whole thing is about. So we cut to 6 months ago, where basically Fitz was like, hey Gemma, you want to go on a date? And instead of, you know, Gemma actually going on a date with Fitz, she decides to go to a different planet. Man, women sometimes can truly be evil. Instead of, you could have just said no, but no, you go to an entirely different planet. But in the beginning, she's trying to remain calm and tries to sleep. That doesn't necessarily work all that well, because there's a loud noise, so that's a bit of a shame. And eventually, after hours or days or weeks, she decides, you know what, I'm not gonna wait any longer. I'm just gonna go out and explore, because also we are running close to that 100-hour clock, and she needs something to drink, because as she said, if humans do not drink for 100 hours, they're dead. So as she is exploring, she's also kind of dreaming about her date with Fitz. She's like, oh, what am I gonna wear? And will he pull out the chair for me? Or maybe he won't, you know? Maybe he shouldn't. But maybe he should. That would be nice if he did that. So then she is really close to that 100-hour mark, and she's like, I need water. And there's no water. But there is a storm, and after the storm clears, we have a bit of water. So she decides to drink, stay a little bit at this little pool that's there, and then she decides to just strip down and jump in the pool and have a little bit of a swim. And it kind of looks like she's wearing a swimsuit, but she's not. But it did look like she was just wearing like a swimsuit. I found that convenient. However, as she is in the water, turns out there is something else in that water. So, yeah, she frees herself. However, she's also like, I do need food. Let me eat this piece of whatever attacked me, because I do need food. And then she decides to go in for more, because apparently it tastes so horribly, she wants more of it. But she does make a fire after the second go around, in order to be able to potentially, it might actually taste a little bit better. And she also apparently has made an alarm system, kind of just set up a bunch of things just in case. However, they go off. So she goes and investigates. However, she gets caught by a guy named Will, and initially he keeps her in a cage and is like, are you possessed or a figment of my imagination? And then she hits him. Is like, nope, you're definitely real. And it turns out you are not actually possessed, because apparently there is a thing out here that throughout this whole episode will be called It. It is still out there. So yeah. However, Gemma escapes. She tries to run away. However, then It arrives, and then she and Will go back. And that's also when we learn his name is Will. And now we kind of have to work together with Will in order to be able to, I don't know, get out of here, even though he's like, there is no hope. And she's like, there is hope. Don't worry. There's gonna be a switch up on that one later on in the episode. And also we learn that Will has been here for 14 years. Because for those who do not know, this takes place about 10 years ago. Oh my god. In 2015 is when Gemma went into the portal and also got spewed out for 6 months. And apparently NASA knew about this, and they sent in Will and a couple other guys in here in order to explore the place, kind of like sending them to Mars. However, there was no way home, but that was 14 years ago, back in the year 2001. However, the other guys that came with Will, they kind of went insane after kind of coming into contact with It. And one guy set himself on fire, another guy also kind of offed himself, and then the third guy tried to kill Will, but Will had to kill him for survival purposes, obviously. So now that Gemma and Will have become pals, they just kind of like stay here for a little bit, for about 2 months. And Gemma's like, alright, I need to explore the no-fly zone, because that is literally the only place we have not yet explored. And Will is like, that's not gonna happen, because that's where It is, and you don't want to meet It. So Gemma goes out to explore, gets close to the no-fly zone, and she finds a bunch of old stuff from, I think it was 2 episodes ago, where we had that, you know, like in England, that scene. But she finds a bunch of that stuff, but one of the things she finds is actually like a star reader or whatever it is. However, then It shows up, and Gemma actually sees It, and now fully believes that It exists. So she goes back to Will, and they barely make it back into the safe house. And then Gemma's like, I know a way home because of the stars and stuff like that. And then she opens the map and she's like, okay, so this is where I came in. This is where you came in. Apparently, this is how it travels for like 14 years. So I'm gonna read the stars and I'll find our next exit point. And she does find the next exit point. And they go over there. And apparently, the canyon is bigger than it used to be. And apparently, it can potentially change the planet a little bit. And it doesn't want you to leave. So they can't make it out, but they do have a bottle. So they shoot the bottle towards the portal. However, the portal closed before the bottle works. And at this point, the switch up does indeed happen. As in, Gemma now has no hope. And Will has the hope. And also afterwards, a romance blossoms because there is technically no way home. Until one day, they are gonna see like a sunrise, I guess. However, instead, what they see is a flare. And Gemma's like, it must be Fitz. Of course it's Fitz. It has to be Fitz. So they go to the location. However, then it shows up. And Gemma's like, oh, look, your guys came for you. And then he's like, that's not my guys. Run, Gemma, run. And Gemma runs. And Will fires one shot of his bullet. And we presume that he's dead, which may not be the worst presumption to make. But Gemma hears Fitz's voice, runs over to him. And then we get that scene from the other side's perspective where Fitz basically pulls her back. And then in present day, she's like, we gotta go back for Will. And it's like, okay, so first of all, he asked you out on a date and you go to a different planet. You come back 6 months later and you say you have a boyfriend. Wow. Way to crush a guy's spirit. But Fitz gets up and he's like, he says nothing. He goes to the lab and he's like, all right, here we go. We gotta find him. And you can see the pain in his eyes because that's his woman. Dang it. They're supposed to be together. Fitzsimmons. That's how it works. Okay. But we have to save good old fashioned William. And in the post-credit scene, we see the fact that Will is still alive and he throws away the gun and he's still alright. So yeah, time to save Will. That might happen in the next episode. Maybe it's gonna be a couple episodes from now. But the one thing I can say about this is that this is the season's biggest mistake that they make. Alright, now that we are done with the Gemma story, let's see what really happened with Garner. He's alive, don't worry about it. He is perfectly fine. He's a bit hurt though. He's not really badly hurt. He just got a couple of like bruises, I guess. I don't really know. He is lying down though, but it's like he can walk later on in the episode, so it's perfectly fine. So technically, Hunter didn't really make the wrong decision, but May is still not happy about it. And apparently what happened was the fact that Coulson had a S.H.I.E.L.D agent following Garner, just in case, for protection, obviously. And he saved him. So that was good. Very nice. Wonderful job. And May has also fully returned to S.H.I.E.L.D. and she wants to go after Ward. And Hunter is off the case because he missed his shot. And Ward isn't really happy about the fact that Strucker's kid is still out there. So he wants to go after Strucker, but he doesn't really have any information. But it is a problem though. So we need information now about him. And also, Daisy thinks that Lash has info from the ATCU and might actually be part of the ATCU. So she and Mac are gonna go look into that. And then Hunter comes around the corner and is like, please let me join. I'll drive, okay, please. Because he's been benched. He first annoyed Fitz and he kicked him out. So now he's gonna try and join these two. And they accept. So time to go after who they think it is, which is Banks. Because of the fact that the only one who left the convoy was Banks. And the only one who knows the information was Banks. So it might be Banks. So let's go after Banks. Meanwhile, May attacks Bobby about the whole thing with Hunter. And then turned out it was all a test. And then she asks her to join the team in order to go after Ward. So as they are on the plane, they get the information that there weren't enough bodies. One body is missing. Turns out the Strucker survived. So now we have to go after Strucker because Ward is probably also going after Strucker. And who gets to him first will get all the information. All the juicy details. So Strucker's kid goes to Malik. You remember that guy from the World Council from the Avengers movie? Yeah, he's actually in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And people still say that these two things are not connected. It's insanity to me, but whatever. Anyway, he goes over to him for help. Turns out Malik was part of the Hydra after all, and this makes so much sense when you consider that he was the one who really wanted to bomb or nuke New York back in the Avengers movie. Now it all makes sense. Of course Hydra wanted to nuke it. I mean, you get rid of the aliens, but also you get rid of the Avengers, who are your biggest threat, and Captain America, your biggest opposition. It's a win-win. Time to bomb everyone. But sadly enough, Iron Man had a different idea. But Malik is like, don't worry about it, I'll help you. I got your back, don't you worry, kid. Meanwhile, Coulson also goes to Rosalind. However, she has a little bit of a trouble because someone broke into her house. And then they go to the house, but Coulson eventually figures out that this was all a setup to kind of keep him away from the facility. So then Rosalind's like, fine, let's go to the facility, okay? So as the squad is following Banks around, they don't really get a lot of information, and they kind of hit a dead end when he reaches home. So then, well, while Mac and Daisy are talking about what are we gonna do, Hunter just goes out there and just kidnaps him. And then Hunter's like, can we just use his blood in order to test if he has inhuman markers? We got our Lash. If he doesn't, then we're free. And then Daisy's like, how are we even gonna get the blood out? So Hunter just punches him. It's like, maybe I do have anger issues, which I thought was really funny. Also, Bobby and May are going to, I actually forgot where they went, but they went to the bank in order to see, because of the fact that Strucker used one of the banking accounts from Hydra. So they go over to the bank in order to see what was taken, and everything goes wrong as it usually does, but it turns out that one of the passports was actually used recently in Portugal. So May and Bobby head over to Portugal, and also Bobby may have some PTSD, because while the guards were there from the bank, she wanted to kind of talk things down, and that might have caused some PTSD for gun violence because the fact of, you know, what happened to her last season. So she needs to get in gear. Also, Malik gives Strucker to Ward, basically, just to kind of be like, you know what, you'll remember this next time I call you. Simple as that. So he gives that location to Ward. So now both sides are heading towards the same location in order to find Strucker. So Daisy and Mac learn that Banks isn't Lash because of Simmons being able to analyze the DNA. So now they're kind of back to square one. However, since we're at a facility from the ATCU, we might as well go in to explore with the Dwarf 2.0 that can actually go invisible. So we go in there, and apparently there's a package that's supposed to be arriving. Turns out that what Rosalind is doing, and also the ATCU, is the fact that they basically take these Inhumans, put them in this box with gel, and that kind of puts them in the coma, and apparently what they're searching for is a cure. Now that is the part that Daisy, Mac, and Hunter don't hear about, but Coulson does, because he's standing right there, and Daisy's like, why is he not freaking out? It's like, Coulson is trying to keep his calm, but let's be honest here, he is freaking out. And to be honest, that is 100% true, because Coulson was like, yeah, this is not really okay. But then she's like, look, we're working on a cure, and we're kind of putting them in a coma. Also, my husband died a couple of years ago of cancer, and if I could have done this to him until we found a cure, I would have done that. Also, it's now 10 years later, we still don't have a cure for cancer, so that guy was gonna be in the stasis for a very long time. Also, Rosalind likes Coulson, which is very nice. But then May and Bobby arrive at the place where Strucker is supposed to be, but Hydra was already there, and they were already like beating him up. So then Bobby and May fight against Hydra. Bobby gets over her fear of guns and has a nice battle. However, one part of the battle I kind of have a little bit of a problem with. I don't know. It's just a little, potentially a me thing. Anyway, the main guy, I guess you could say Ward's right-hand man, and also Bobby, they fall into the pool, and then Bobby climbs out and then shocks the pool in order to shock the right-hand man. Wouldn't she also get shocked? I mean, she's wet as well, so I mean, she's not in the pool, but like she's still dripping wet, so which it feels so wrong to say that about a woman, but I don't know how else to say it, okay? Anyway, while that's happening, May takes out the guys that are up there, and she talks a little bit with Strucker, who reveals what really happened at the gas station. And it turns out that what Garner was saying was only part of the story, because yes, there was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent there. However, turns out Garner is actually Lash. He turned into Lash, beat up the other people, and then decided to blow up the gas station. So now May knows the truth. And then in the post-credit scene, we have Daisy, who is still in contact with Lincoln, and that's nice. And Garner really wants to get that location for Lincoln, which I don't really understand, because Lincoln is not a problem, okay? So I don't know why Lash would be going after Lincoln, but whatever, you know what? And also this explains why Daisy was spared, because, you know, it's Garner. He cares about Daisy, but he doesn't care about the rest of them. He'll kill anyone in his way. And also it shows that he is doing this consciously. It's not like, you know, like something's taking him over. He knows what he's doing, and he is doing bad things. So I guess that's what we'll have to deal with. Alright, people, it's time for the Lash episode. And at the beginning of this episode, we learned that Lash is why Garner actually left Melinda May, as we could have all suspected. And Coulson and Daisy disagree about the whole stasis gel operation, as was expected. We all knew it was gonna happen, but that's because Coulson kind of understands Rosalind's point of view. Meanwhile, Daisy doesn't. And the thing is, Rosalind and Daisy are both thinking in two big extremes, and it's well, there's just a little bit of a problem with that, because later on, Rosalind is like, you are ignorant if you think the way that you do. And I'm like, but you also are. You both are kind of ignorant, okay? Look, yes, Inhumans can destroy the planet if they wanted to. I mean, look at Black Bolt. If he even whispers, the tiniest of whisper from his mouth, he'll blow up the planet. The planet is just gone, you know? Daisy can quake the planet in half. Foreshadowing. And all that stuff, but also they're not all dangerous. For every Lash there's a Daisy, and for every Daisy there's a Lash. It's kind of like that. But Coulson is gonna be in a meeting with the president, apparently. Rosalind has ordered this one, so Daisy gets to tag along, which is nice. But that's basically Coulson being like, I want my potential future wife to meet my adoptive daughter. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like introducing, like, you're a single parent and then you're gonna go out dating again. It's like you're introducing your date to your child. It's kind of like that. Meanwhile, Fitz is gonna recover the data from the phone, at which point later on in the episode he sees a couple of videos which break him, which are, by the way, from earlier moments in the when she was trapped. And also May starts to research a little bit about Garner, because of the fact that she hears from Bobby that Lash can turn human. It's like, oh, okay. So when she comes back to base, she looks at the flight logs for Garner, which Mac actually notices while he's walking by. I saw him walk by and look at the screen. I like that. But anyway, she's looking for the flight details, and it's like, oh no. So now she's gonna search for Garner, but then Daisy's like, yeah, he's at the Cocoon, which is a training facility, because that is where our dear old friend Joey is. So at the Cocoon, Joey has really learned how to control his powers. I'm so proud of him. He looks really happy about himself as well, because he's like, imagine the stuff that I could build with this. And then obviously Garner's like, or destroy, because Gardner's thinking about killing him. But it's like, look at the stuff that I can build or even destroy, you know? I mean, he could technically build, create a bunch of beams in order for other people to make like a building, or he can safely tear a building down if need be as well. That kind of stuff. He's looking at it like that, but Gardner basically sees potential target, but maybe not. However, eventually Melinda May arrives there, and she sends everyone else away so that she can have some alone time with Garner, and then she confronts him about it, and as she's pushing, he's like, stop it! And ices her and kidnaps her. Meanwhile, Bobby also does not want either her or Hunter to go after Ward, because it kind of seems like both of them are turning into monsters, and that's something that she does not want. And also Daisy gets to spend the day with Rosalind, which is yeah, I already talked about that a little bit, but it doesn't really go all that well. Don't worry about that. She'll come around a little bit, though, but then we have the big reveal at the end, so everything kind of gets thrown away. Also, Lincoln contacts Mac because of the fact that he's like, I need your help with Lash, because he's in S.H.I.E.L.D. He's a S.H.I.E.L.D. person, okay? So apparently, somehow Lincoln knew this, but that is a very specific thing that we'll explain later on, but we'll explain that. But Mac agrees to help. And then Lash has May captured, and he's like, look, okay, I'm sorry, I never wanted any of this, and also this is why I left you. It's not because of you, it was because of Lash, okay? And also, it's like this hunger, alright? I have this hunger to kill them. When I get close to one, it's just like this instinct takes over. So he is not fully in control, but it's kind of like a drug. Or it's kind of like me at the zoo, because there's actually like a zoo close to my house, pretty big one actually. And at that zoo, whenever I'm there, it's like I'm just I don't know if it's a zoo, maybe it's like a little farm. Anyway, whenever I walk past that place and I see all those cows, I do think of hamburgers, and I just get completely hungry. So it's kind of like that, but instead of eating them, he wants to kill them, and maybe afterwards he goes for hamburgers, who knows, but still. But basically, official confirmation. If there was any doubt in your mind, it is now gone. But May does not really want to understand him, even though she does love him. So then apparently a Quinjet arrives at the jet where Coulson and also Rosalind and Daisy and, you know, some of S.H.I.E.L.D. and some of ATCU are. Mac comes in with Lincoln, and they're like, look, okay, Lash is in S.H.I.E.L.D. And Lincoln deduced this because of the fact that well, Daisy's mom, S.H.I.E.L.D. I think was her name, at Afterlife, which finally I remember that place. Anyway, at Afterlife, she had this big book of Inhumans. And who is the person who was allowed to read that book after S.H.I.E.L.D. was dead? Oh, it was Garner. So, putting two and two together, yes. And then Mac is like, well, it actually makes sense, because I was looking at, because I saw May look at flight logs from Garner. So, she's onto that as well. And then Coulson is like, well, they're missing from the Cocoon. So, it's true. So, they all kind of start to collectively go after him. So, sadly enough, the president has to wait. They get to the location. Coulson walks in, and he has a little bit of a talk with Andrew. And everyone else has to stay back back, but Lincoln doesn't really listen, and he instantly starts to attack. And, well, yeah, then a big battle ensues, but eventually Melinda May shoots him a couple of times and puts him in the containment cell, so all is good. Also, I liked how Rosalind was like, we got him. It's like, no, you don't. But they get him in, and then eventually at the end of the episode, Rosalind proposes the whole gel thing, and May is like, Daisy, what would you do? And Daisy's like, well, I mean, maybe, you know, it's the best thing, because Lash is actually a bad guy, so yeah, sure, why not? So she chooses to put Lash inside of the stasis gel, and that's the end of the episode. And then in the post-credits scene, we learn that Ward wants Coulson dead, which is not really that big of a surprise, but still nice to have that confirmation. That is what Ward is planning. And apparently Rosalind is working with Malik, so she may actually be a baddie. Now that we got rid of Lash, we need a new baddie, and Rosalind and Malik and also Ward will fit that perfectly. And also something that I actually found very fun, but didn't really know how to slot in, so I'm not gonna talk about it at the end. In my notes, it is actually at the end, is the fact that Fitz figures out that there's some kind of a secret organization that was behind the monolith stuff. And also the reason that our good old friend William is on the planet as well. And I was immediately thinking about, oh my god, it's the Templars. It's the Templars, they're behind it. But who knows who's behind it, really? I mean, I do, but I'm not gonna tell you guys because we'll figure that one out when time comes. But I just thought it was funny because the fact I was instantly thinking about the Templar Order. Also, something that I completely forgot to talk about in the thing. I was actually editing the section now, and turns out I forgot to talk about this. But anyway, in this episode, Lincoln also states that the transformation from Garner to Lash is a bit of a he's kind of going through puberty, let's call it that, and the puberty is Lash, so eventually puberty will stick and there will be no more Garner and only Lash. Major Assassin's Creed vibes in this episode, major AC vibes, cannot resist. Anyway, let's just start off with the beginning, because more towards the end where I get the AC vibes. So this episode starts off with Ward, who wants to get into Strucker's vault because apparently there's some sort of like super weapon in there that he wants to get his hands on or something like that, but he just wants to get into the vault. However, Gideon is like, nah, that ain't happening, and also sends in a couple of guys to kill Ward. However, you can't kill Ward. Many have tried, many more have failed. No one has been able to do it. So he takes them all down, kills one of them, and the other three, he needs to get something from them, and that is the fact that he needs to know how to get into the vault, because he knows the location, he just doesn't know how to get in. So he tries to torture one guy, but then the other guy is like, look, okay, none of us know, okay, the location of the vault is right here. This is the vault, but like nobody knows how to get in, okay, because he brings different people with him every single time. It's like, ah, okay, cool. I was bluffing about knowing the location because I knew where all the vaults were. I just didn't know which one I needed. Thanks for the information. Now you can die, and you others can die as well. I'm going over there. Also, Lincoln has joined the base. He is now officially part of the squad. I'm happy that he's here. And Coulson is going to get a meeting right here at the base with Rosalind. And Mac isn't really too happy about that until Coulson kind of reveals the plan about, I'm bringing her here so that you guys can explore her base and figure out what's behind it and all the information, and to see if we can truly trust Rosalind. So the gang goes off to infiltrate. Alright, the infiltration goes simply like this. We have Bobby and Hunter who go into the ATCU. We have the rest standing on standby, and we have May and Lincoln, because she chose Lincoln to be her partner, which, yeah, okay, that should scare anyone. When Melinda May is like, I'm gonna work with you, that means she, that means your life could be over anytime soon. But anyway, those two are supposed to be the extraction in case things go wrong. So they start off by sending out like a virus pulse that kind of checks off the IT people, who then will call for help so that Bobby and Hunter can get in, and then that will allow Daisy to be able to get into the systems entirely in order to get the information that they need. Meanwhile, Fitz and Simmons are still investigating the whole thing, and they learn that Will was actually a sacrifice by an ancient cult, the Templars, or the Order of the Ancients, I guess you could call them. And Fitz is extremely mad about the fact that we have to rescue Will because he absolutely loves Simmons. But the thing is, the universe, the cosmos has put a curse on Fitzsimmons to be apart. So he hates everything, but he still kisses her. So he technically kind of gets a W, even though it's not really a W that will last. But don't worry, Fists. Keep your head up high. It'll all work out. Trust me. I've seen the rest of the series. I know how it's gonna go. So keep your head up high, my friend. I'm on your side. Look, normally I don't like romances in TV series because it's always the same. But this time, I am all for it. Fitz deserves a W. He deserves Gemma. And so does Gemma deserve Fist. They are made for each other. Simple as that. True love right there. So as they are searching, it turns out that this ancient cult is actually Hydra. And it is really ancient. As in it predates the Red Skull. Which we'll get more into later on in the episode. So in the ATCU, they're all investigating. However, Bobby finds out something. They don't have Inhumans here. They don't have a cure here. However, what they do have is they got the means to make more Inhumans. And that is exactly what they're doing there. So Coulson confronts Rosalind about this whole thing. And initially we have a bit of a back and forth. It's like, I thought you loved me and I thought you loved me and all that stuff. You know how it goes. Yada yada yada. We can skip past all that. But until we get to the ending where it's like, yeah, Rosalind actually did not know what was happening there. She legitimately thought that they were making a cure, and she was working for a guy named Gideon Malik. Also, the reason why Coulson was suspicious of Rosalind was basically because of one of their first meetings, because she mentioned Tahiti. The only people who knew that were S.H.I.E.L.D. agents and Hydra, specific members of Hydra. So he questions her during the touring about S.H.I.E.L.D. and she's like, yeah, I don't know anybody in S.H.I.E.L.D., which is like, well, then it must be Hydra, which might mean you're Hydra. And I loved you, woman. You can't be Hydra. And she's not Hydra because of the fact that she thought they were actually doing the right thing. So then Bobby and Hunter get made and they kind of need to fight their way out. However, there is an Inhuman there with telekinetic powers, which kind of causes some trouble. But don't worry about it. Bobby and Hunter take that guy out so they can escape. However, Rosalind then makes a call to... So then Banks comes in to help Bobby and Hunter get out. And it turns out that he's also on our side. We can all be happy about that one. I sure as hell am. I actually like that he's like... He comes in, he's like, come with me. I'll get you out. It's like, can we trust you? Worry about trust on the way. Come on, let's go. I like the way that he said that. So at least we know that Rosalind is safe. Now then, back at base, let us give the full... Also, may apologize to Lincoln because of the whole, you know, Lash going after everyone. So that's why she wanted him alone. Anyway, let's talk about the true history of Hydra, because before that, it is literally like the Templar organization. Because beforehand, it was a different name, as in the Templars were the Order of the Ancients, then they became... Well, then I guess the Order of the Ancients kind of died, and from the ashes, the Templars were born in that sense. And that's kind of what happened with this as well, where the original ones were not Hydra, but over time they changed names and eventually became Hydra. And Hydra existed before the Red Skull, and basically what they wanted, thousands of years ago, an Inhuman was born to rule. Dang it. Thousands of years ago, an Inhuman was born to rule. I almost messed that up because then I wrote down war to born, so it's just misspelling. Anyway, he was born to rule. However, there were some, I guess, other Inhumans that were scared of him and threw him away. And yeah, that is the one. That is the it that was on that one planet where Simmons was at. That is apparently the one who was born to rule Earth. But Malik was basically, well, Hydra, I guess, basically wants him back in order so that he can rule the world, and with Hydra, obviously. And they are using the Inhuman stuff in order to create an army for this creature, which I would like to name, but I'm not going to. And Malik tells all this stuff to Ward, which I think it's funny because Ward is like, and I'm supposed to believe all this. Why? And then he's like, look, you want Coulson gone? I can help you do that. Let's work together. And then they will work together because Malik specifically wants to know how S.H.I.E.L.D. brought someone back from that world. And then to end the episode, we have the fact that Ward goes to Lash. I'm just gonna call him Lash. But anyway, he goes up to Lash and he's like, look, S.H.I.E.L.D. knows how to turn off that monster. I would like to know how to turn on the monster. So I'm gonna put some mustard gas into your chamber and see if that will wake up the big boy. So episode 9 starts off with a little fancy dinner, even though they're eating basically McDonald's. they're eating all fancy wine glasses and everything, and then she just has a burger on her plate. Anyway, Rosalind gets shot by Ward. That's just immediately rip that bandage off. And he then sends in a team in order to kill Coulson, who takes out the entire team and escapes thanks to Mac. So yeah, that Rosalind joining S.H.I.E.L.D thing, that didn't really last all that long now, did it? So Coulson is now on a warpath. He wants Ward dead, and he will sacrifice everything in order to be able to do it. So starting off, he interviews the OG team in order to be able to get info on Ward, something that he can use. And they all kind of give him the same info, and that is the fact that there is something that he does care about. And Coulson figures out that that is his brother. So he decides, look, Mac, you're gonna be the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. now. Here you go. You're the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. because I'm gonna do a mission that the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. cannot and should not do. Also, I'm taking Bobby and Hunter. Simple and easy. So they go off in order to catch the brother, which I actually do like that they break into the place. Like it's a bank robbery or something like that, and then they just kidnap him in order to get to Ward. Meanwhile, Ward also let it slip earlier about the whole portal stuff. So Fitzsimmons and also Banks go in because they learned about an abandoned facility that was used by Hydra. So they go over there in order to learn more information about what they were doing, because to be honest, there might still be something there. And instead, the telekinetic guy is there, and he basically kills the whole team except for Simmons and Fitz, which, sorry, that feels awful to say. It's Fitzsimmons, not Simmons and Fitz. But anyway, he takes them to Malik, who wants to know how they brought someone back. And obviously, what do? You torture the woman because it would make the man break. Simple as that. And that's what they do. The telekinetic guy tortures Simmons while Ward is just sitting there with Fitz just listening to her cry. However, he can't listen for too long because he gets a phone call from Coulson about the fact, hey, I got your brother. You know, the only thing you actually care about in this world. Alright? If you don't give yourself up so I can shoot you dead, I'm gonna kill him. Simple as that. It's like, Coulson, you're not gonna kill him. It's like, no, but Hunter will. Let's be honest here. Hunter is also on a warpath for you, and he will kill you. But then we get the big reveal from the brother that he technically also kind of wants Ward dead, because he actually kind of hates Ward's guts. And also the fact that he was hiding from Ward. He actually did not want Ward to find him because he's terrified of him, because Ward is an actual monster. However, we need to trace the call, and we need to call him again, or he needs to call us, and we need to figure out a way to keep him on the phone long enough. And obviously, you know, the heart is how you get him. So the brother's like, let me talk to him. So the brother talks to him about everything that had happened. It's like, look, man, it's not just the well that you did to me. You killed our parents, okay? They were my parents too. And also Christian, you killed him too. Simple as that, okay? You are a monster. I hid myself from you because I never want to see you again. I never want to talk to you again. I think you are a monster. And that all that stuff allows them long enough to track the location. And once they have the tracker, Coulson grabs the phone and is like, we got your location and I'm coming. Which, why? I mean, I get why, but why? It's the stupidest thing you could say. Like, really? You're just gonna alert him? He's not gonna prep the defenses in order, you know what, whatever. Anyway, he's not happy about that. And he's like, we need the location now. So Ward goes in there to torture Simmons himself. And that eventually makes Fitz break. So they all get ready to use the portal. However, Simmons is like, ha, I did not break. So I am not gonna help you. It's like, yeah, we were trying to break him though. And he did. And then she's like, why did you do it? He's like, well, I mean, I'm not gonna lose you again. And also, I will bring Will back. And I'm, because of the fact I know future events, I'm like, please don't. But whatever. Also, it's gonna ruin your shot with Simmons. Let's be honest here. So just don't, okay? Just don't. It's not a good idea. However, back at base, because of the fact that Mac is new to the whole, you know what? Even though I know what happens later on, I am happy to see him be like a leader, like a junior leader right now. It's so innocent. He becomes much better later on to lead, but it's so cool to see him just be like, I have no idea what I'm gonna do. Let me call Coulson. That kind of stuff. Anyway, he has heard of the plan of the infiltration, and they got a lot of air defense missiles, so they need to get a team together in order to be able to take on Hydra. However, we don't have the time. And then he calls Melinda May in order for help, and she's like, you know what to do. And then everybody suit up, and also we have Joey back, and also Lincoln, and two of them together with Daisy have become the Secret Warriors. We finally have the team formation, boys. And now it's time to leave for the assault against Hydra. Potentially the final assault against Hydra. And then Malik later on is like, look, Ward, I don't want you to go after Coulson. Instead, I want you to lead the team. Simple as that. Who goes to retrieve it. And Ward is initially like, look, you're playing me, but I'm in. And eventually he agrees to go in. So Ward goes to the different planet, and then Coulson's like, I'm not letting you get away. And he jumps out of the plane into the portal right before it closes. And I'm like, if he was a second late, he would be on the floor right there, which would be the funniest thing. Oh, okay, there goes the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. There goes the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. right there. Who knew it was that easy to just take him out? He just fell from the sky and died. What a guy. However, in the post-credit scene, we get the reveal that also, by the way, Ward took Fitz as well with him to the alien planet. Anyway, in the post-credit scene, we see Coulson fall, and he hits his head and gets knocked out. And also, the gang needs to get to a specific location in 12 hours in order to be able to come back. And that's the end of the episode. And man, things are only starting to heat up, aren't they? The next episode, we are gonna be taking on Hydra, baby. And I am so excited to do that. Alright, time for the full assault on the Hydra base. But first, let's check in with Fitz to see how he's doing. And he's on the planet. He's leading the squad. Ward gets annoyed that Fitz isn't really saying anything. And Fitz then tries to grab the gun, which means that he gets punched in the head. And yeah, that didn't go right. I don't know what he was thinking, to be honest, but I don't think he really was thinking at all. But they keep walking for a little bit, and they find a big Hydra symbol, and I'm like, how is that possible? Because that doesn't really make any sense. But like, why is there a big Hydra symbol? Because didn't the symbol change over the decades after it got sent away until it became the Hydra symbol? I don't know. It's just a thing that I thought of. We see this big Hydra symbol, and it's like, well, okay, Hail Hydra, I guess. Meanwhile, at the compound, apparently there was a delivery of the Inhumans in gel, you know, the stasis gel. So every general needs his army, as Malik says in this episode. So we need to find a way into the compound. The problem is there's a lot of firepower, and we ain't got that. So we need to find a way in. And I'm like, I've played enough Assassin's Creed to know where this is going. And yes, it is, boys. Stealth master. We need to go in stealthily. Take everyone out, because, yeah, it's too much. Meanwhile, Fitz eventually finds the location that, I guess Gemma talked about where Will was. So he opens up the thing, jumps down there, finds Will, but then Ward is ready to shoot him until Fitz is like, look, I need him in order to, look, I know the location, but he's the only one that can get us there. As in, you know, I want to get Will back for Gemma, because that's what Gemma wants. And it turns out he's fine. He's perfectly fine. Good old Will. There's nothing wrong with him. We're all happy about it. Outside of the fact his leg is a bit banged up. So Coulson is having a dream about Rosalind, obviously, you know, why wouldn't he, you know, it's a very attractive woman, but then he wakes up and he's like, alright, time to go hunting, boys. Ward's gonna die, baby. So the team goes to infiltrate the castle, and I'm really happy about the way that they do it, because like, you have made taking people out stealthily, and then it's like, okay, there's too much light there, and then you have like Lincoln just turning off the light so that stealth attacks can happen. I love that stuff. Kind of reminded me of Assassin's Creed Shadows. You know how in Assassin's Creed Shadows, for anyone who has played the game, when the lights are off, you can actually be invisible and then take people out. Pretty cool. I don't think during the Let's Play I made use of it, but that's also because I'm an idiot. So there's a reason for that one. But we infiltrate the castle. Meanwhile, because of the confusion, Gemma escapes and she finds Lash, and he's like, let me out, please. Let me out, okay? I'll help you, okay? And Gemma's like, okay, fine. And she lets him out eventually, because otherwise she's gonna die. Simple as that. And Lash takes them out, and also the Inhuman army that is there. So it will not have an army to come back to. At least, hey, look, I know that those were innocent lives that were taken, but looking at later on in the season, maybe that wasn't such a bad thing after all. Those people would have rather be dead than be slaves to it. Let's be honest here. So Will eventually takes Ward and the soldiers and also Fitz to the no-fly zone. He's like, stay with me because I got a plan to get us out of here. And then a big sandstorm happens, which causes people to be separated, but then Will goes into action and he kills a couple of people in order for him and Fitz to be able to escape. What a guy. I can see why Gemma fell for him. And then they walk off. Meanwhile, Coulson finds Ward. He finds Ward and he's ready to take him out. But first, he needs to be led to the exit. So come on, keep walking, Ward. It's like, wow, you're really waiting on that. Because this is the episode where Ward actually dies. So I'm just like, let's get to that moment, shall we? But no, it's like, all right, come on, keep walking for a little bit, okay? Because we need you in a specific position for later on, for the end of the episode. Don't worry about it. So they keep walking. Eventually, he sees Fitz. A little bit of a reveal that we have today. Turns out, yeah, back when Gemma escaped, Will actually did die. Will died, and it took over Will. Because they find, like, this whole civilization, and Will then really talks about it. Like, he was there, and is like, yeah, it's because I was. Because Fitz tries to patch up his leg, and is like, oh, God, that's rotting flesh. You are not alive. It's like, yeah, I'm not alive. But anyway, I was there. I killed the ancient civilization because they were not ready for me. So then there's a bit of a fight that happens. Coulson shoots it in the back, and that causes Fitz to be able to be safe. But then he gets attacked by Ward, so we have Coulson versus Ward, and Coulson eventually wins. And then Fitz picks up the gun and shoots it again in order to be able to stop it for good, which it actually seems to work. So then he's like, come on, Coulson, the portal's opening, we gotta go. And then Coulson is like, I'm just gonna kill you. I'm gonna crush your heart with my robotic hand. And he does. He kills him. Meanwhile, with the rest of the squad, Daisy eventually finds this room, and she's about to be killed by the telekinetic guy until Joey jumps in front of the bullets, and the bullets just melt and hit him. But like, it's just he got covered with like silver paint. Like, yeah. And then we have Lincoln who takes him out. So they eventually get to the room of the portal. They reinforce the exits in order to be able to make a final stand to get Coulson back. However, they also learn from Simmons about it. And it's like, okay, so there's just this ancient god that Hydra has been following. Cool. Yeah, great. Why not? But eventually, Mac makes the choice. He's like, all right, you guys all go. I'll stay here. And when I give the signal, you blow this place up. Okay? Simple as that. You'll blow the place up. And let's just hope I can get Coulson and Fitz out of here. But if that thing shows up, you blow this place up. Simple as that. And everyone's like, no. And it's like, I'm your leader. Obey me. Come on. And then Daisy's still like, no, I'm gonna stay here because in case something goes wrong, I can kind of hold open the portal. And I'm like, no, that you can't. You remember last time the sonic frequency happened? You kind of almost passed out. You're not really gonna be any help. But anyway, Mac is like, okay, Daisy and I stay. You guys go. So the portal opens up. Daisy faints as predictable. And then we hear later on Mac say, all right, blow it up. So then the castle gets blown up and an escape pod goes up to the to our bus, I guess, or whatever you want to call the thing. I'm still gonna call it the bus. Anyway, to the plane. And it turns out that Fitz, Coulson, Daisy, and also Mac are all okay. And now the place has been blown up, which means... Also, by the way, I never said this because I keep forgetting about it, but I like how in the monolith, since like the last season, you saw that there were kind of holes in it. And it's like, yeah, those were the things that they took out of that big thing in order to be able to have some for themselves, I guess. But I like how they had that detail there because you saw holes in it. And it's like, yeah, because they took some stuff out of it. I never said that, so I like that. But yeah, anyway, everyone is safe. Everything is stopped. However, before they left, you did see like this silver thing come out of Will. And yeah, in the post-credit scene, it's revealed that Ward's back, baby. But he's not Ward. It's back. It has actually returned. How? I don't know. I guess it came right at the last second of the portal. And before everything blew up, it was able to escape. But yeah, we now have our main villain of the rest of this season. How nice of them. And that's the end of the episode. And I very much like the whole assault thing. I love the stealthy bits. So let's get on to the next one. Alright, we've reached it. We've reached the halfway point. And this episode starts off with 3 months into the future, where a ship is in space and in crisis and explodes. And then we cut back to present day, where something or someone attacks the Spanish cops and steals their weaponry. And I know who it is. It's Yo-Yo, baby. I was excited to get to Yo-Yo's episode because I really like Yo-Yo in the future of this series. Meanwhile, Coulson has a meeting with the president at Rosalind's house, and basically he's like, look, okay, what you've done is good. You still can't come out in the public though, but we're gonna put a new person at the head of the ATCU. You'll never guess who it is. And he's gonna take orders from you, but you guys are still in the shadows. Nobody knows that you exist. Like, okay, fine. Also, can you help with Malik? And he's like, no, actually, he's too powerful. I can't help you with that, okay? So Coulson's like, well, plan B, I guess. So S.H.I.E.L.D. goes over to Spain in order to figure out how to catch this new Inhuman. So they work with the cops, and eventually Max sees a girl and is like, she looks a bit suspicious, especially the shoes. And is like, well, turns out she is indeed the one that we are after. And she kidnaps Mac, which later on is actually funny because later on Hunter's like, really, her? And it's like, why you? Also, we learned that Hunter tried fish oil in order to see if he could get powers, because maybe he could get invisibility powers or x-ray powers, which, yeah, okay, of course, those were the two. And apparently Bobby tried as well, because, you know, you never know, maybe you'll get some cool powers. Or maybe you become a tracking device or a really dumb-looking Sonic the Hedgehog. That's also a possibility. Also, throughout this episode, Fitz is basically distanced from Gemma because of the fact that he feels guilty about killing Will because he put a flare in his back, which I actually thought looked pretty good. But yeah, he feels guilty for the whole episode, but that'll get fixed by the end. They basically reintroduce themselves to each other, but like, hello, I'm Gemma Simmons, I'm Leopold Fitz, and I'm like, right, Leopold, that was your name. You're always called Fitz. The other one is like Gemma or Simmons, but you, it's always Fitz. It's always Fitz, so I forgot he had a first name. My apologies. So Coulson wants to get Malik, and how does he plan to do it? Well, the Strucker Kid, obviously. He's gonna put the Strucker Kid into the machine in order to get some memories, potentially, in order to be able to get any way to contact Malik. And initially he's like, kill me, and then Lincoln, after he says no, but he still does it, he kind of calms the brain down so that Coulson can get the information. Coulson then goes to the location, he gives out the password and has a phone call with Malik, and basically it's like, yo, we're tracing the skull, by the way, so everything is gonna go horribly wrong. And it's like, well, I'm gonna close a couple of things, which happens at the end of the episode, but he did put a little dent. Also, Malik has Hive now, and Hive is kind of starting to regain some strength, learning about human history, but basically he does need some food. He's a bit hungry, and I'm like, is that raw food? Like, at least properly cook it, you know, or bake it, or whatever, but like, at least make it properly. Don't give him raw food. Come on, man, add some flavor to that mix. So back in Spain, Mac eventually has an escape plan, and he almost gets out until Yo-Yo, as I'm gonna call her from this point forward, which is also what Mac actually calls her. He gives her the nickname. I actually forgot what her real name is, because she's always just called Yo-Yo, at least to me. But anyway, Mac's escape goes horribly wrong, and also she's like, I'm not the bad, well, I mean, the subtitles did say this. She said like, I'm not the bad guy, and also the cops are basically the bad guys, and this power was a gift from God. So after a little bit, the gang tracks down Mac, and they go and rescue him. And I like how they rescue him, where they apparently, before Daisy blew open the door, they put like a little thing around the door, and then she blows it off so that it's like a net that catches Yo-Yo. And now they've caught Yo-Yo. Great. So now we need to know what they are actually using those weapons for, and apparently they're just throwing them in the river. At least the cousin is throwing it in the river, because they're not the bad guys. The bad guys are actually the corrupt cops. So now that we've gotten this whole situation wrong, Bobby and Hunter are going after the cousin, which they find him. However, turns out that the cops find him as well, and apparently they have an inhuman there who can freeze people, so that's fun. So they kill the cousin and take Bobby and Hunter because, you know, important people. So now we have to fight against them, the coppers. Also, we learned in this episode, at least through the subtitles, that the bad guy's name is Hive, so I'm gonna call him Hive from this point forward. Just wanted to throw that one out there. I even named him Hive in the notes. So now Yo-Yo is gonna become officially part of the team in order to take down the corrupt cops, and Yo-Yo's powers basically work like this. She bounces, like, she can run fast, like really fast. She can move really fast, but once the heartbeat clicks, she goes back. So basically she moves as fast and far as she can in a single heartbeat, but once that heartbeat clicks, she goes back. So the infiltration is actually pretty cool. She just uses her powers in order to get the key card, in order to take down some people. I love it. However, then the guy with the, basically, let's call him Medusa. Then Medusa basically freezes everyone, so that doesn't really work, until eventually he does get taken down, thanks to Joey, who is here as well, translating Spanish. What a guy. And also melting the glasses to the head. So wonderful. However, then Hydra shows up and takes him, so that's not really fun. They take Medusa, so that's a bit sad. But Yo-Yo also does not really want to join S.H.I.E.L.D. because there's a lot she can do at home. But also, we're gonna do kind of like an Avengers thing. You remember at the end of the Avengers, how the Avengers kind of split up, but if they need each other, they know where to find each other. We're gonna do one of those. We're gonna give everyone a watch. At least we're gonna give Yo-Yo a watch, and if she needs help, or if they need help, the raw watch will be the communication between the two. And also, Joey decides to accept this as well, and he leaves as well, sadly enough. But he'll be back, don't worry about it. And then to end the episode, Hive is getting stronger, and Talbot is gonna be the head of the ATCU. It's good to see Talbot back. So at the start of this episode, the Medusa Power Man gets brought to Hive, and apparently his powers do not work on Hive. So that is a useful thing to know. And he then becomes part of Hive's entourage, I guess, together with the telekinetic guy. Also, Talbot's wife is mad at him. We'll learn more about that later on in the episode. And yes, of course, we have Talbot back. Wonderful to see him again. And apparently, we're going to a conference in Taiwan about the Inhuman stuff. And potentially, there is an inside person from Hydra there, maybe. And we need to root out who it is, because of the fact that it would be bad if, you know, someone from a country gets all of the Inhumans. It would be the perfect breeding ground for Malik to just pick up his army. However, a shady person is following them, and it turns out it's Creel. He's back, baby. But he is the bodyguard of Talbot, and he would trust him with his life. And it's like, well, you know, Creel isn't really such a good guy. I mean, I wouldn't really call him like an official like villain, but like also apparently he was under Hydra control before, and that's why he did the bad things. But he was already a bad guy before Hydra got their hands on him. But whatever. Anyway, I still like to see Creel because that is technically a connection to Daredevil, and that makes me very happy. So then we learn the fact that at this conference, Quake isn't allowed to go, and neither is Lincoln technically, because of the fact that they might scan for Inhuman DNA. But Creel is actually allowed to go, which makes Hunter very upset because of the fact that the last time the two saw each other, well, you know, a couple people kind of died because of him. Also, we learned that Hive can't take over an Inhuman because of the fact that Malik is like, you need a new body. It's like, yeah, I can't take over Inhumans. And I like this body. I like Ward, so I'm gonna keep him. So let us get into the conference, and the fun part is the fact that Talbot is wearing kind of a dress. I know it's not officially a dress, but I'll call it the dress. Even Talbot called it a dress, which, by the way, Talbot is great in this episode. He's like, that person is the baddie because of this reason. Oh, that person isn't because he's Russian. That woman isn't because of the fact that she has a scar, and that one isn't because of this reason. It's like, you just basically accused the whole conference. Fantastic. Thank you, Talbot. That will get us one step closer to finding out who it is. However, we need to be able to investigate all the rooms, so we shake some hands, baby, because the fact that Fitz made this thing where he can put fingerprints. He can take fingerprints from people and put them in like this glove thing. If Coulson, with his new hand, actually shakes hands, and by the way, the new hand looks like a normal hand, so Coulson basically got his hand back. Probably gives the CGI people, no, that might be a little bit better than him having to wear a glove every time to pretend it's a prosthetic hand. Also, they took a little bit of Creel's blood, and it turns out that Creel's blood can actually be used as a vaccine against Inhumans. Now, it will, I think the way that they said it in the episode is the fact that it will not work on already established Inhumans, but it will prevent you from even having the chance to turn into one, or maybe if you're in the early stages. That is the way that it looked. I mean, maybe it actually works on fully fledged Inhumans, and this will cause a rift between Daisy and Lincoln, because Daisy is like, we're not a disease, and Lincoln is like, well, you know, I mean, a disease kind of changes the body, and so does the Inhuman stuff, so technically, Inhumans kind of are, but I do agree with Lincoln on this one, because Lincoln is all about choice. He's like, look, man, people deserve a choice. Do you think Gardner would have wanted to turn into Lash? No. If he had the choice, he would have taken a vaccine, but you, on the other hand, would not have taken it. We should give people choice, but then Daisy's also like, yeah, but we can't really give that to governments because they're gonna force it on us, and it's like, well, kind of as we saw back in the day during the problematic era of the early 2020s. Yeah, I do kind of see where she's coming from, because governments did force it. And I am all for vaccines. Don't you worry about that, especially the ones that we give to kids. No, they don't cause autism. Stop being stupid. Autism is something genetic, okay? You're gonna get it whether you're gonna get the vaccines or not. Simple as that, because of the fact that your parents have it, that kind of stuff. However, I will say that outside of the ones that you get as a kid, vaccines should always be a choice instead of a forced mandate. I'm all for choice. So as the gang is searching the rooms, Hunter sees that Creel has left his post and then leaves his post in order to go after Creel, because potentially he is the bad guy. And what he finds is something very special, because he gets into this truck, he opens the thing, and is like, oh my god, they got a child inside of the gel, and that looks like, yep, Talbot's the inside man, boys. Initially, we think it's the woman with the scar on her face, which actually she might also be part of it. But yeah, the main one is Talbot, and he sells out Coulson immediately, be like, this man is actually from Hydra, the leader of Hydra. He's the bad guy. And Coulson's like, what do they have on you? Also, Malik appears, and he's like, look, man, I'm the good guy. Okay, I served on the World Council. I have a good resume. But you can't believe him if you want to, you know? I mean, S.H.I.E.L.D, Hydra, what's the difference, you know? I mean, you saw Winter Soldier, right? Yeah, no real difference. So Coulson gets taken, and then Talbot is like, give me back my son, and Malik is like, no, I will not. I don't think that's such a good idea. So then Talbot gets betrayed. Obviously, they get put in a cage, and then they are about to be shot, but they're saved by Creel, who was sadly enough not able to save the son of Talbot because of Hunter's stupid stuff. But that officially confirms that Creel is a good guy now. Also, May goes after the child, and Bobby and Hunter fight against the security guards there. Everyone apparently was allowed to bring guns except for our guys. But don't worry about it. Hunter did smuggle in a couple of weapons after all, so he gives them to May and Bobby before you know, we go on the mission. But we take everyone out together with Creel as well. He takes someone out as well. Very nice. Saves Hunter. And May got the child back. And then Bobby and Hunter get sent after Malik. And to finish off the episode, Coulson and Talbot are officially partners now. And I'm very excited to see where that's gonna go, because I like both of these characters. I love their interactions throughout the whole show. So I'm excited to see more interactions between the two of them. And also, this is not gonna lead to anything good for Bobby and Hunter. I will say that right now. If memory serves me correctly, eventually this is gonna be turning out very bad for them, so I can't wait to see that. Also, Hive took a bunch of like 5 humans, and he basically disintegrated them, and now he's got some gel over him, so I guess he's using regular humans to heal himself, so that's not dangerous at all. Alright, I will say this, I did cry during the end of this episode. This is a very sad episode, because this episode leads to cancelization, and I'll explain more about that at the end of this. So this episode starts off with an interrogation for Bobby and Hunter because of the fact that they did something bad in this episode, but we'll work our way to what really happened. Apparently they shot some people, which, yeah, that sounds about right, especially for the mission that we have right now. And also Hunter at one point gets framed, but Bobby never breaks, neither does Hunter. They are truly loyal to S.H.I.E.L.D. Fantastic. Anyway, let's go a couple hours earlier, and Bobby and Hunter are following the convoy, and they eventually get to the facility. However, S.H.I.E.L.D. can't see inside of that facility. Also, we can't kill Malik, because if we do, that'll lead to a whole host of problems. Because remember, in the eyes of the public in that sense, he is still a good guy. And if you kill him on foreign soil, that is gonna be so bad. Like, there's just not even close to being good. However, Bobby and Hunter do get caught, but they're able to free themselves immediately, so that's really just an action sequence that we needed in order to keep the viewers' attention. And apparently, the ministers are coming here today. At least that is something that is being talked about, so that could lead to some problems. Also, we learned the fact that Gideon Malik is here in order to talk about the sanctuary stuff. However, the Prime Minister, he's not really happy about it. He'll come later on, don't worry about it. But he is 100% against it. Also, apparently, he had himself like an advisor or something like that. And apparently, the Minister of Defense, who is an Inhuman, killed him. So there you go. However, he killed him without laying a finger on him. So how did that work out? We'll figure that one out later, because Malik wants to get the general loose in order to wreak some havoc against the Prime Minister. So Malik leaves the place, and that's when the team learns that the Prime Minister is coming here. And yeah, let the general loose, and let's see what mayhem can happen. And it turns out that the general can control shadows, at least his own shadow, which is apparently a being from like a different universe or some stupid thing like that, or like a dark universe, or well, I don't know. Came from the dark universe from Universal, I think it was. But anyway, basically he can his shadow comes alive, is his own person, and can kill people. However, because it's a shadow, it doesn't really leave any fingerprints or anything like that. So you can kill people without ever knowing that it was you, basically. So now we have to stop that guy. And eventually, at the end of the big fight, which actually the fighting looked pretty cool, Daisy's like, how are we supposed to fight this thing? And yeah, you're not really supposed to fight that thing. And then Bobby comes up with the idea, wait, if I kill the general, that will stop everything, because Hunter's about to die. So she kills the general, and then they get caught, and then we teleport to the other sequence. By the way, Hunter also grabbed the Prime Minister in order to have him escape, but they got caught by the shadowy figure, and the shadowy figure left or died when the general died. So everything is safe. Yay, president is great. Or Prime Minister, not president. Prime Minister is safe. But at that point, Bobby and Hunter do get caught by the military, and they get questioned, obviously. They are not gonna give anything. However, Bobby and Hunter, they do see one way out. So Coulson eventually gets into the room because he's an advisor for ATCU. Anyway, he gets into the room, and he knocks out their video and audio frequency, and is like, all right, look, we got about 90 seconds. We'll blow open the wall. We'll get you guys out. Don't worry about it. And then they're like, yeah, that's not gonna happen because that would expose S.H.I.E.L.D. No, we're gonna take the fall, okay? We're gonna take the fall. We'll quit S.H.I.E.L.D. And that's it. And yeah, they're gone. It works. They get cleared of all charges, but they will never be able to work in government ever again. Also, that being S.H.I.E.L.D. And yeah, I will talk about this more later. But first, we have a farewell drink that brought me to tears. And in the post-credit scene, we learned the fact that Malik has a daughter. Anyway, now the reason they did this is because of the fact that they were gonna set up a show called Most Wanted. And that was gonna star the two of them. However, yeah, that got canceled before, you know, anything got done with it. So, since the episode was made and the cancellation happened and they couldn't really go back on it, this is the last time we'll see Bobby Morse, aka Mockingbird, in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or ever again. Hunter will return later on, don't worry about it, but this is the end. But it was a sad ending, and yeah, I really wish that this did not happen. I do like the episode, however, it shouldn't have happened. I'm just gonna say it like that. This should not have happened at all. But that's the end of the episode. And also, I was expecting this to be like an episode 15 to happen, but no, immediately getting into it. So let's see what goes on in the next episode. Alright, so now that we had the sad goodbye, let's get back on track. A couple of episodes ago, Daisy mentioned something about like Watch Dogs, and I was thinking that she wanted to play the fantastic game Watch Dogs 2. But actually, it's a hate group. Yes, we also have some of those. Even in the real world, we have hate groups, sadly enough. I don't get the hate. I don't know why people always have to hate, you know. It's such a bad thing, such a negative thing to just hate. Look, we all dislike things, but like hate, really, especially if stuff that you don't understand is a bit dumb, you know? Whatever. Anyway, Mac's back home because of the, you know, he needed some time off. However, he gets called in. Also, he's working with his brother, but when he gets called in, that kind of ruins some stuff with his brother. Because the Watchdogs attack the ATCU because of the fact that they hate all aliens and want them all dead. Simple as that. However, the brother thinks that it is pretty cool. And at the place, it seems like they used the implosion stuff from Howard Stark, like that kind of tech, but they improved upon it in order to be able to implode the ATCU building. Let's hope nobody worked there, because they're most certainly going to be dead. And Mac is like, let's take the debris back in order for analysis, and Fitz is like, that weighs about 100,000 tons, because, you know, that's basically a smaller version of that building. It's kind of like that stuff, I think it's actually exactly like that stuff from Agent Carter, the TV series. You remember in Agent Carter? We talked about that a long time ago, but they used that stuff in order to take that rock-sub building and turn it really small and just basically suck it in. Yeah, that's basically what's happening here. Nice to see crossover tech, even though I don't even know if Agent Carter was a thing by this point, but I think it might have been. Also, we learned that Felix Blake, yeah, you remember him from the one-shots that we've talked about recently, but also from other projects and even Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. itself. He's back, and apparently he's the head of Watch Dogs, the hate group, so that's fun. Alright, Felix Blake really went downhill after Deadlock just broke his spine, pained him, as some people might say. So then Mac and Daisy are talking about how we can approach this, and Daisy basically wants to grab a guy and shake him for information, and Mac is like, that is not who we are. But Daisy still goes along and does it anyway. Also, Lincoln had an evaluation, and apparently that bad boy wasn't really that good, because he's specifically here for Daisy. He less so cares about the cause, and he's not really good at following orders, and he's a bit bloodthirsty. Mainly when they were going up against Lash and also Creel from the last episode, I think. No, that was the episode before that. 2 episodes ago. But Coulson takes him with him to go after Felix Blake anyway, because of the fact that he needs to see it for himself just how useful Lincoln can actually be. And as they are talking, Lincoln kind of interrupts, but then he's like, yes sir, alright, I'll prove myself, don't worry about it. Come on Lincoln, you can do it, we all believe in you. So then when Mac gets back home, the brother starts to sound a lot more like the Watchdogs, and it seems like he has kind of gotten into that bubble. He's kind of gotten himself into the bubble of the Watchdogs, so yeah, sometimes hate can really reach far. Both sides, both the left and the right, spew hate constantly, and it is always bad to go along with either side, obviously. And it seems like this guy has kind of gotten into the bubble itself, which is not a good thing. So Mac is like, don't do that stuff. But then they have a bit of a fight. The brother apparently cannot pay for the mortgage. He was also apparently very alone when mom and dad died. He had to do everything himself. Mac wasn't really there to help, which is a bit sad. Also, May is searching for Lash, but we'll keep that one in the background. But basically, she asked Gemma for help in order to find Lash. So Daisy goes, in a sense, dark, and she goes to a guy. She scares the info out of him him about where they're gonna meet. And and she learns it. And also Fitz is there as well, who's not really too happy about what Daisy's doing, but still. So they go over there, and Mac will join them as well after the fight with the brother. Mac thought that the brother left, so might as well leave as well. But then the brother comes home, but then Mac leaves over to the location. Sadly enough, the brother overhears it. So once at the base, they're scoping out the place. They hear Blake's voice, but Blake is nowhere to be seen. However, then the brother appears there as well, who is following Mac apparently. And yeah, that's not a good idea. However, then some soldiers, because Daisy is using her powers, and Daisy is not in view, but Mac is. It looks like Mac is shooting those quake blasts from his crotch. So they immediately think he's one of those stinking aliens. He's a stinking black alien. By the way, that's a reference to Shadow the Hedgehog, the video game. I couldn't resist. So then Fitz gets hit while Daisy goes in order to see if she can get some confirmation on if Blake is there at all. But spoiler warning, he's not there, because actually he is where Coulson and Lincoln are. They eventually find him and they start talking a bit, and Blake is like starts to talk in speech, and Coulson is like, hey, normally you don't do speeches. There's something off about you. You're stalling for something. Why are you stalling? Because they have a second target. What's that second target? It's Mac. It's Mac. Simple as that. The second target, as we learn later on, is the fact that they want to get one of those stinking black aliens and kill him. And Mac fits that bill perfectly. He could not be more perfect outside of the fact that he's actually not an alien and he ain't got no powers. So, yeah, but they don't know that. So they want to kill Mac, so they attack his house. Also, Coulson tells Lincoln to kill Blake, which Lincoln is initially like, we shouldn't do that, even though he really wants to. But we shouldn't do that. But then he does it, and it, first of all, wasn't a kill shot. And second of all, Blake ain't here. Apparently, he is, also, by the way, the dude could stand. That was a bit of a surprise as well. But anyway, apparently it was a hologram after all. And Coulson knew this because of the fact that Blake normally interrupts you a lot more, so he must have been lagging. Maybe he was using that Nintendo online talking feature. You know, the Nintendo Discord thing that is out on a Nintendo Switch 2, which I own, actually. I do not own that by the time of recording this bad boy, but it is coming next week for me, and I own it by the time that this goes up. Can't wait to get that bad boy. But anyway, they tried to use the antidote on Fitz in order to stop the implosion. The problem is it doesn't really work because of the fact that there's been some tinkering to look, I'm not good with those names, so I'm just gonna call it the thing. So yeah, that thing. So Daisy takes one of the guys of Watch Dogs guys with her in order to get the information out of him, and he's like, well, okay, I don't know any about it, but they changed it a bit. It's like, oh, okay, so we need some ice. So Daisy grabs some I don't know, an ice blaster, an ice beam thingy, and just freezes it off, basically. But then they learned that the second target was actually supposed to be Daisy, but they didn't know that, so they're now attacking Mac. So now we finally get to that point, and Mac is defending himself because he turns off all the lights. He makes up with his brother, but he turns off all the lights, and then his brother's like, won't this make it hard for us to see them? It's like, yeah, but we know our way around this place, so we have the advantage. So Max starts shooting a couple of people. However, later on he gets shot as well, and then he decides to grab like a cutting thing. I don't know what you call that in English, I'm sorry. But anyway, he attaches it to his to the shotgun that he has, and he's like, shotgun axe. And I'm like, my man finally got a shotgun axe. He's been talking about that all season. Fitz should really start making one of those for him. He really deserves it, especially after this. But he takes everyone out. However, he got shot, so he's a bit bleeding out, so he gets knocked out, and then he gets wheeled away to the hospital. And yeah, that's basically the end of the episode, except for the fact that in the post-credit scene we learned that apparently the Watchdogs were being fed intel from Hydra. Whether Felix Blake knows that or not is a little bit unknown, because later on he talks to one of them, you know, the telekinetic guy, but he doesn't know that the dude is telekinetic. So I will say that Blake is not with Hydra, so he works with them unknowingly. And apparently all of it was a cover because of the fact that Hydra stole a missile or a nuke, either one of those two, from an ATCU facility, and then the Watchdogs imploded it so that there's no evidence of what they actually took. So it actually is pretty smart. So let's see where that goes. And this is not the end of Felix Blake just yet. So in this episode, dude touches a homeless man, and then he's like, oh, Daisy, help me, please. Daisy, help me. So he makes a 911 call and says that exact same stuff. And also he said like, oh, this is where I die, which will come into play later. Anyway, so S.H.I.E.L.D. picks up that frequency. They go to the location. Turns out that the dude had a vision of the future, and Hydra attacks, takes the homeless guy who gives future visions, and Daisy has a vision of the future as well herself dying potentially. At least Coulson shooting her. So that's not really gonna be a lot of fun. And that's basically what this episode is. Trying to change the future, but learning that basically you can't. Simple as that. Also, Hive is now doing perfectly fine. He's walking around. He's suited up. He eats something. And he's like, Malik, what do you really want? Because you're basically the most powerful man in the world. In a sense, you have $9 billion in your bank account. Like, how powerful are you? All right. And then, but he wants true power. So Hive is like, there we go. That's the answer that I was looking for. So let's get you true power. And he brings back the hand that Coulson had back on that weird planet. And that's the answer to everything. Because there is wiring inside of that hand that was developed by a company. And that company is making like an exoskeleton suit to give powers in that sense. Or at least to make you stronger. But without the exoskeleton, you're not stronger. They're kind of like that. It doesn't actually give you powers. It was a little bit of a mistalk about my the way that I said it, because of the fact that we are in the Marvel Universe and I cannot misspeak about that kind of stuff. Also, Coulson has decided that the way we're gonna prevent the vision from happening is the fact that we don't have May in any of the visions. Everyone else appears in the visions, so no one's gonna go except Agent May. And then Daisy's gonna teach her how to get past the thing that she needs to get past in order to save good old Charles, as the homeless man is called. Also, we learned that Charles, after he got his powers, he saw visions of the future, but they didn't know they were visions of the future until they came through. And afterwards, he walked out on his 18-month-old daughter and also on his wife, because he didn't want them to be, you know, he could never hold his daughter ever, because she would have visions of potentially her own death. We cannot let that happen. High five. Oh God, grandma's gonna die. That kind of stuff. It's not a good idea. So Malik arrives at the company and he's like, look, I just want to buy this company. Name your price and I'll buy the company. And the dude's like, yeah, you're not gonna buy this company. Who do you think you are? And then Hive has the Charles guy show the dude a vision of the future. But Hive is like, I'll show you what's gonna happen in the future. And then he sees everyone dying and he's like, okay, fine, I'll sign. Okay, please don't hurt me. And Hive is like, I said I'm gonna show you what's gonna happen in the future. I'm gonna make it happen. And he then kills everyone. And eventually we find the location of the building. So now it's time for us to move in. However, Daisy decides to go alone because of the fact that, well, Andrew shows up. Yes, good old-fashioned Lash, he shows up. And that is why May was in none of the visions, because of the fact that she has to stay with Andrew, at least before he turns for the final time, because it's about time for the final time that he is going to turn. And then she's like, would you change the past if you could? And he's like, no. But then she's like, about meeting me, because technically I'm kind of partially responsible for all the stuff. And he's once again like, no, I wouldn't change the future at all. Alright, I love you. Simple as that. I wouldn't change it for the world, okay? And also, there's a potential cure that does not work because he actually does turn into Lash. However, and in one part of the episode, I forgot who says it, but maybe Lash has a future part to play. And I'm like, yeah, he does. Lash is made to kill Inhumans, but what if he's only meant to kill one specific Inhuman? You know, Hive. Lash kills Inhumans. Hive's an Inhuman. What if Lash is the answer? I actually don't think that's how it happens, but still, that's the first thing that I thought of. So Daisy goes in. Fitz has a pirated feed from the building, and the reason that Coulson and the rest of the squad go as well is because they see Ward, and it's like, oh no, but Ward is supposed to be dead, so oh no, that's the thing from the other planet, isn't it? So they go in order to take care of everything. And also, the reason that Daisy saw Coulson shoot her was actually he was shooting a mirror, because she goes into that one room where she has to deactivate the security, takes everyone out. However, one-way mirror, that's the only thing she did not know. So Coulson comes in, shoots the mirror, kills the one guy behind the mirror before he could kill Daisy, and that's why she saw that stuff. So then Daisy goes up to the roof because that's where they're taking Charles, and she has to save Charles. Meanwhile, the rest of them will search for Grand Ward. Yeah, this day could get any weirder. However, Lincoln gets badly damaged, as the vision did show, and he does not get to have a chance to take out Ward. And Daisy, instead of seeing that she saves Charles, she gets attacked by Malik, and Charles is actually the one who saves her. However, Malik, sadly enough, does escape. We'll get back to him later. But Charles dies, but Daisy is safe. However, right before that, Daisy gets another vision of the future. However, this time it is the one that we already saw. The one that was like 3 months later, where basically you see the ship in space, and then you can see the kaboom. The space boom. The space explosion, if you will. And then to end the episode, Malik is very afraid, and also the telekinetic guy has fully sided with Hive and has basically basically given his resignation to Malik because he's now fully with Hive. And that's where the episode ends. So in 1970, Malik, after the dad died, the Malik brothers were called in by Whitehall. Remember him from last season? And he asked them to join his version of Hydra, obviously Red Skull's version of Hydra. And they're like, no. And then he's like, well, you know what? Hey, did you know your dad cheated? You remember those ceremonies about who gets sent basically to be eaten by Hive? Yeah, he cheated. I know it's a lot to take in, but he did cheat. Find a book called Paradise Lost, and I'm like, isn't that going to be a Wonder Woman show? Whatever. So eventually the Malik brothers go back and they do one of them, Nate is his name. He looks at the book and he notices that it's true. Apparently there was a little bit of a opening made inside of the white stone so that he could feel where it was so that he would never pick the white stone. And then the Malik brothers both promised that they would never use it and throw it away. Turns out Malik actually did put it in and he cheated. And his brother gets killed. Meanwhile, in present day, Hive is at Malik's house and he's called the inner circle for a bit of a meeting about the fact that, yo, I'm back. And also he shows off his true face. We'll see that one later on, don't worry about it. But yes, he has a true face under there and it is exactly like the Hydra logo. But with the S.H.I.E.L.D. team, they have to split up because apparently there's some information about at a chemical plant or whatever it was that they need to look into. However, Lincoln apparently knew a guy who knew potentially something about our Hive friend. So Daisy and Lincoln are gonna go over to him while the rest of the team searches the facility. So Daisy and Lincoln arrive at the facility and immediately it's one of those insane people's like, just get off my lawn, and also I got mines all over my lawn. So Daisy steps on a line, uses her powers in order to get out, and then she uses her powers to blow up all the other mines. And then they try to get information. Lincoln is like, look, I got a Terrigen crystal with me right here with your name on it if you give us the information. So he's like, well, okay, I don't really know much, but this artifact had something to do with it. And basically the Inhumans teamed up with the humans in order to stop it because it was made by the Creed to rule the Inhumans. So Lincoln steals the thing and then escapes with Daisy, but not before the one guy talks about the fact, hey, about Lincoln. He killed his ex-girlfriend almost. He almost killed his ex-girlfriend. So Daisy's like, what is he talking about? And Lincoln is like, well, look, you know how the emptiness that Inhumans feel before they get their powers? Yeah, I felt that, and I replaced it with vodka. And then I caused a car crash accidentally and almost killed my girlfriend, not ex-girlfriend. However, at the afterlife, they were able to save her, so that's a good thing. Meanwhile, at Malik's place, Malik had a vision about his own death at the end of the last episode, and he thinks that the one responsible is Hive. We don't know yet, but he is responsible for a death, I can tell you that much for sure. So then his daughter is like, hey, how about you butter yourself up to him? I mean, you're the reason that he's back, right? So if you just keep pumping him full of that, maybe he will let you live. So he starts doing that. He starts to be like, well, good thing I saved you, isn't it? Me, I did that. So the gang arrives at the facility. However, the telekinetic is there as well, and Coulson escapes from him, but then also lures him into a room with May, and they start to have a fight, and I'm like, couldn't he just use, like, I know that he uses inanimate objects in order to fight, and this is a room without them, but she's wearing clothes. Wouldn't that count? She has hair. Couldn't he just choke her with her hair, or like basically crush her with her own clothing? Couldn't he just do that? I don't know. Maybe this is just me thinking outside the box, but like, couldn't he just do that? You know? Whatever. Anyway, Melinda May eventually wins after a kick in the balls, and they take him prisoner. However, he has a bit of a plan as well of escape because he tries to use his powers in order to escape, but it doesn't work because they close the door immediately. So then later on, Coulson is like, maybe I shouldn't have killed Ward because of the fact that it's now coming to bite us, and that's not a good idea. Maybe I should have just let him live because vengeance is not something that we should be all about. And I'm like, well, no, that's the guy from the next season. That's his whole thing. However, later on, Fitz goes down to where also the telekinetic guy is, and he's just looking around, and then he notices that there's something missing from like the seatbelt thing, and then turns out that is something that the telekinetic guy was able to get in the confusion, and he uses that in order to escape, and then he takes over the plane and he brings it over to Hydra basically, and yeah, that's basically the end of that storyline. However, we do need to deal with the whole like Malik and Hive thing. So Hive, after he shows his true face later on, he talks about the truth about the fact that you know, Malik cheated and stuff like that, and he talks in the with the words of his brother, which is kind of funny because then afterwards he kisses his daughter, and I'm like, so you use the memories of basically the uncle. So you are the creepy uncle. You're basically the creepy uncle who's okay, cool. Yeah, he's the creepy uncle that kisses his niece. Sure, why not? Anyway, he then kills her as punishment for him cheating, and Malik stays alive. So yeah, he's gonna kill, but he ain't gonna kill you yet. And then to end the episode, May actually reaches out to Daisy about the fact that the plane has been taken over, and then Lincoln is like, let's assemble the secret warriors. So that's gonna happen in the next episode. I'm so excited. Who's the traitor? That's the question of this episode. So this episode starts off with the secret warriors needing to be assembled, and everyone joins in, and we head for the base. And to be honest, we get done with this pretty quickly, because basically the opening of the episode is rescuing Coulson and the gang, because that is not what the real part of this episode is. Anyway, the secret warriors, they go into the base. They all split up, which will come into play later on in the episode, in order to do what they need to do. Meanwhile, inside of the plane, it seems like Team Coulson, everyone but the secret warriors, are fighting off against Hydra's forces, and they have actually barricaded themselves. So the secret warriors take care of everything, save the day, and then the Yo-Yo knocks on the door. Mac opens it up, and she's like, oh, it's good to see you again. It's like, ah, she's been practicing that. We saw that at the beginning of this episode. Very nice. And then we escape with Malik as well. We've caught him as well. And then Hive is like, don't worry, we got an inside man. And obviously, the thought also Joey kills Medusa Man, so that's fun as well. But Malik seems to be the inside man. So let's see where that goes, shall we? So throughout this episode, Joey is having a little bit of trouble about killing Medusa Man. However, turns out Medusa Man's body still gives off some kind of heat. So that will come into play later when we question Malik. And initially, Malik starts talking about his daughter, and then eventually is like, yeah, he killed him. He killed her. He killed my daughter. And then Coulson plays on that angle, being like, focus on that and work with us to stop him, to end Hive. And then Malik drops the truth bomb, and that is the fact that, well, about Hive, yeah, he kind of mind controls Inhumans. He can control Inhumans, and that is initially how he was designed to be by the Kree, so that he could control the Inhumans for the Kree. So that only leads one answer. One of them has been turned. But then Fitz and Simmons are analyzing the body, mainly Simmons though. Fitz is on the other side of the room because ew. But she's examining the body, and it turns out, yep, it's true. It is entirely true. So now we get a little bit of paranoia here about who the traitor is, and then the secret warriors kind of figure out that they are the target, so they kind of barricade themselves. But then Lincoln is like, look, alright, Fitzsimmons actually kind of confirmed that it's true, because they took a body with them, the body of Medusa Man, in order to analyze. So it's true, one of us has been turned. And then they all kind of start to turn a little bit on each other until they don't. But then Daisy's like, alright, I know a way out, follow me. And then she leads them into a trap. Poor Coulson. And then it's like, okay, which one of you is it? However, he sends some people in order to search the belongings, and it turns out that Lincoln had the orb, meaning that he's probably the traitor. So everyone's focus on Lincoln. However, there could be others. We don't know how this works. So everyone gets their blood taken. They all get tested. We don't really get the results of those tests, because of the fact that Daisy escapes her confinement, goes over to Lincoln, and is like, let's escape together. And then Lincoln is like, oh, so you're the one who's turned, and you betrayed me. You planted evidence. And she's like, yeah, because you're the easy one. You're the easy target because you have your anger issues. Like, and he's like, oh, why you? Oh, I loved you, woman, and you betrayed me like this. But it's basically kind of like a drug for her. She's like, but I have seen he gives you happiness, the one piece that we've been searching for. That's what he gives us. And that's basically how he controls them. But Lincoln is like, I am not leaving with you. And then Daisy's like, fine, and walks off. And in my mind, I was like, why doesn't Lincoln just kind of like try to warn the squad? But whatever, maybe he couldn't, you know, maybe he can use his powers or whatever. Anyway, Daisy then grabs the orbs, grabs a bunch of Terrigen crystals, walks away, and basically reduces the base kind of to ashes. At least she uses her quake powers in the base in order to have part of it come crashing down for her escape, and she's gone. She escapes the base, and now everyone knows that it's her. And in the post-credit scene, Hive will use Malik's money for some reason. At least 960 million of it god, can I have just a percent of that? My goodness, that's like 9.8 million, right? That's like a percent. I could go for like 0.1% at this point, okay? Can I have a little piece of that puzzle? Come on, dude. Give me a little piece of the pie. Anyway, yeah, he's gonna use that money because even though Malik is now dead, his wealth will be used to further Hive's plans. Alright, I got some good news and I got some bad news. Good news is Daisy is the only one infected, and in this episode, a couple of promises, or at least wishes around Grand Ward are gonna be coming true. The bad news is, yeah, we need a way out of the base. Because the fact that Daisy kind of broke the whole thing, we can't really escape, and they were only able to open up the doors, the roof doors for the plane a little bit. And Coulson has the idea of having everyone move over to Zephyr 1 in order to escape. Yes, it's not called the bus. Finally learned the name. Very nice. And May actually does this really cool maneuver in order to get the plane out. Very nice. So now we need a new plan. And also we've learned that icers don't work on these mind-controlled Inhumans because of the fact of the basically the quote-unquote Hive drug that Hive gave them. And we finally get the introduction of someone who will become very important later on, kind of. That being Radcliffe. We need to find him because he is the one who can potentially make a cure for Hive's sickness. So Fitzsimmons and Mac go to do that, while Coulson, Lincoln, and May, with Lincoln wearing a blow-up vest, a murder vest as he calls it, go after Alicia in order to see if she has been turned. Maybe she has, maybe not. So now we got the plan. Let's go, team! But before we do that, let's check in with good old-fashioned Hive. And he's standing at a spot where Daisy used to go, and also, I guess Ward, even though he's dead now, finally got what he wanted because he finally has Daisy. I found that funny. Finally, he has Daisy, but now he's dead. If only this happened when he was alive. But they now need to go to a special other location. So Coulson, May, and Lincoln, who decided to wear the murder vest, arrive at Alicia's place and they go to her. However, turns out, yeah, I was here first. She's already been turned and she's not here. She's actually gone, but her clones are here. So they take out the clones. However, one of the clones shoot the other clone and it's like, wow, okay, yeah, Hive is insane. So that didn't really pan out. Meanwhile, Hive and Daisy went over to James. You remember the guy with the artifact and the one who really wanted to be an Inhuman? Yeah, by the way, this is the ancient Inhuman that you were talking about. Here, have a Terrigen crystal. Now tell us where we need to go. And also, his powers become the fact that what he touches basically turns into a grenade. So if he throws, so it blows up. But then Hive instantly fixes his powers for him so that he can fully control them with his powers. However, that also means he's fully under control. And it turns out that he had a second piece to the original artifact, and that is the only way to stop Hive. So that's gonna be fun. But it's now in Hive's possession, so that is less fun. Meanwhile, Fitzsimmons infiltrate this club, looking very nice. Fits in a very nice suit, and so actually Simmons does have also a very nice suit on. She got makeup on there on. It's very nice. And also throughout this episode, Fitz and Simmons are talking about sleeping together. Yep, that is an actual conversation that happens multiple times in this episode. So that's fun. Let's see if there's some payoff there. But they get in and they see a couple of guards looking at them, so they go over there in order to ask them about Radcliffe. Then a woman comes in who is called Anon, which is like, okay, so anonymous woman, gotcha. And she's like, well, alright, fine. I'll tell Radcliffe what you need, and if he accepts your offer because you have a case with you, then we got a deal. So they go and sit down, once again talking about sleeping together, turning off comms, obviously. And then Radcliffe has apparently accepted, so they go down, and they will only be able to see Radcliffe if the eye surgery turns out to be successful. So initially it's like, should we? But then it's like, yeah, we should. So Simmons is gonna numb the eye, but she notices something and just sticks the needle straight into the eye. And then the dude gets up, and it turns out, yes, that was Radcliffe all along, and she noticed that the eye was a fake eye, and there was something off about it. And that's Simmons for you. And then he's like, okay, well, you might be with Hydra, and also I don't really want to help you. So then one of the guards takes Simmons away. Fitz takes out the other guard, and he's like, dude, we need your help, okay? We just really need your help. We're not with Hydra, we're not the bad guys. Inhumans are real, and we are trying to stop the ancient Hive. And he immediately becomes interested in that. But before the conversation can continue on, Daisy shows up, and yeah, that doesn't really turn into fun. She basically takes Radcliffe and then she uses her powers on Fitz and she's like, don't worry about it. I'm doing this of my own free will. And I'm like, is she talking about the fact that she's like immune or something like that? And, you know, she's pretending to be a part of Hive's club. Is that something that she's saying? Because I don't quite get it. But Hive arrives behind Gemma and then talks to her like Will. And that kind of makes her want to shoot him, apparently. Because how dare you talk like my ex-dead boyfriend? So she shoots him and escapes, gets back to the rendezvous point. Fitz almost gets choked to death by Daisy. So I don't know what she's talking about, but I guess we'll find that one out later on. Don't you worry about that one. But sadly enough, Radcliffe got taken, so that did not really pan out. But eventually, Fitz makes it back, and then obviously Fitzsimmons sleep together. Yes, they actually do it. Great. Wonderful. I'm so proud of them, though. Like I said, this is the one relationship that I wanted to have happen, and this officially turns it, because you can't go back to being friends after doing something like that, or someone. But back at base, Coulson is going to watch something very fun, and May joins him, because apparently the intel that Malik gave Coulson allowed the ATCU, I think that was actually the name, ACTU, I don't know actually the name, I think it was ATCU. Anyway, it allowed the ATCU to take down all of Hydra, except obviously Hive. So Hydra is officially in the MCU no more, and it's a very happy days, boy. And then in the post-credit scene, we see why Hive kidnapped Radcliffe, and that's because the fact that he wants Radcliffe to recreate the original Kree experiments that created Inhumans, because he basically wants to turn all humans into Inhumans and then take them over with his hive mind. And that is the end of the episode. God, we're getting so close. Just 6 more episodes and we're done with this season. We are now in the final stretch, boys. We are almost there. So let's get a little bit of a backstory on Hive. You know, we don't really know much about him. Well, apparently he was hunting back in the day when he was kidnapped by Kree and then experimented on, and we saw a little bit of that, and that's it. So we don't really learn anything really outside of the fact that he was a little hunter, and now he became the hunted, and then afterwards he became a hunter once again, but this time in a different way, in the Hive kind of way. But that's basically all we get. Maybe later on we're gonna get more. I don't really care. I like Hive as a villain. He is a threat, but maybe it's also just because of the fact that he has Ward's face that I'm like, I like him. Anyway, in present day, the loyal heads of Hydra are going to be used for experiments. Yes, they were able to escape, you know, the Talbot attack, but they are going to be used for an experiment because, of course, as we learned in the last episode, Hive wants to turn everyone into an Inhuman so he can control everyone. Simple as that. But it seems like he doesn't necessarily have all that bad of intentions. He's not like some kind of super villain. It's kind of weird, you know? It's not like he wants to take over the world and have supreme control. He just wants peace around the world, and he's going to do that by enslaving the whole population. So we do have to stop him. He is bad, but it's not like he is, you know, like a control freak. Meanwhile, for the cure to work that Simmons has, she needs a test subject, and Lincoln, after his last debacle, he volunteers himself for another debacle, which, yeah, that's not gonna really end well. However, Coulson is like, the dangers are too high, I'm gonna say no. So later on, he does it anyway, gets into critical condition, and also kind of turns off the power in the base, and afterwards, at the end of the episode, we learn that the cure doesn't work, so it was all for nothing, boys. Which already reminds me of Linkin Park. All for nothing, all for nothing. I couldn't resist. So, while all this is happening, Coulson is searching for Daisy through the facial scan, and he eventually finds her. Problem is, she developed this stuff, so she should not have been caught that easily. So it could be a trap, and maybe it even is a trap, or, as Max says, maybe a part of her wants to come back. So how are those experiments from Hive? Well, they don't really work, because apparently Radcliffe needs actual Kree blood, and also he's like, I really want to make this work, because this kind of is like my I want to make human evolution, and in order to make that evolution, instead of playing Pokemon, I'm gonna experiment. So he wants it to work, so he's allowed to live, even though he did fail. So then Hive has a plan. He's gonna activate his little old machine that's gonna call the Kree warriors down to here, so that he can actually get some fresh Kree blood. Because you remember that machine that he was like, yeah, that's the only thing that can destroy me. What it meant was that apparently there are some Krees orbiting destroying the planet, and they will be sent down to Earth. I guess they weren't sent down when the whole Captain Marvel stuff happened, but they are gonna be sent down now in order to deal with the Inhuman stuff, and they are the only things that can destroy him. However, as we learn later on in the episode, Hive is just too powerful, but we already knew that. He can just disintegrate people. He has like little parasites. He's basically made out of like a billion parasites that can kill, like they can eat flesh. So I don't really think the Krees are gonna stand that much of a chance. However, they do need a live Kree, so Hive sends Daisy after that. Get me one alive, and then we can drain it. Simple as that. So S.H.I.E.L.D. builds an assault team in order to go after Hive, and well, Mac has a little bit of a conflicting agenda here, because he kind of wants to save Daisy, but Coulson's like, there's no saving Daisy, okay? She's too much. Like, the only way really to save Daisy is to kill Hive. Simple as that. So they go in. However, they can't just mount a full assault, so once again, they go in the Assassin's Creed way, and they go in with stealth. So May goes in. She goes into the building where James is actually at, and he basically just spills the beans about everything that Hive is working on, about turning everyone into an Inhuman, so that's fun. And afterwards, she takes him out when they learn the location. Go there, but that's where the beacon is, so they instantly evacuate the place again, and then they follow one of the Kree guys. Meanwhile, Mac goes after Daisy, but they follow the Kree guy into Hive. Simple as that. He's apparently at the church. Maybe he's begging for forgiveness. Father, forgive me for I have sinned. So Daisy fights against one of them, and I really did not necessarily like this, because they say that these Kree are super powerful, but Daisy takes him out like he's nothing. And it's like, really? You take him out like he's nothing? But I mean, she does later on use her powers to break the bones of the Kree guy, which yes, that is exactly what you're supposed to do. But like, even before that, she was able to dodge his attacks and punch him. Not that it really did much, but still, it really did feel like he should have been portrayed more powerful, and that basically breaking the bones was the only way for Daisy to actually win. But whatever, they got a live Kree now. However, Mac then shows up and is like, Daisy, come back with us. And Daisy's like, no. And then Daisy's like, join me. And then Mac is like, no. And then Mac is like, alright, fine, if you don't want to join. He throws a splinter bomb at the Kree body, disintegrates it, so no more blood for you. And then afterwards, Daisy attacks him and breaks every bone in his body, kind of. She starts quaking him left and right, punching him, and then she's ready to kill him. Meanwhile, with May, they basically let the Kree go to town on the Hive. However, it turns out Hive is a little bit more powerful, because, you know, flesh-eating parasites. And then when all of that is done, they try to attack Hive. However, doesn't really work. Sadly enough, Hive can actually, he takes a grenade to his side, like a grenade launcher thingy, and he regrows it. And, well, Coulson's backup plan was run. So they do that. After they see that, they run immediately out. And also, May shoots Daisy because she's about to kill Mac. Literally, she was about to quake his heart to death. And afterwards, they grab Mac. They escape. And then Hive is very angry at her. However, she's like, you know what? I'm done with S.H.I.E.L.D. Okay? I tried my best to get them on our side. They didn't want to turn on our side. However, don't worry about the whole Kree thing, because if you really look deep inside of Grant Ward's memories, you would know that I have Kree blood in my DNA, because that is what Coulson used in order to bring me back to life. And then it's like, drain me. And that's where the episode ends. So, in this episode, the Accords have just happened. They've just been signed into action, and basically that is a part of this episode. The fact whether we should sign the Inhumans on the Accords or not. And Coulson is just like Captain America. He's very much against the Accords because of the fact that S.H.I.E.L.D. used to have an index, and look how that turned out. You remember that back in season 1? How, you know, that is how they were able to get some people. Yeah, that's not a good idea. So Coulson is 100% against this. Also, Hive is draining Daisy's blood for the Kree blood, obviously, as was established in the last episode. And the Watchdogs are back, kind of. Not entirely, but kind of back. Because they have a little thing where they want to kill Inhumans. They find an Inhuman, but then they get kidnapped by Hive in order to be used in the experiment in order to turn a human into an Inhuman. And what happens actually is the fact that they get turned into these weird monster things. So that's fun. Basically mindless outside of the fact that they only serve Hive in a way. However, later on, Hive says to Daisy's like, these are our children. And I'm like, so this is what a Ward / Daisy kid would have looked like. Yeah, okay. Maybe it's a good thing thing that they don't have kids. Horrifying creatures. I know parents would like to say that all their children are beautiful, you know. Oh, my kids are beautiful. There's not even a single parent could say that about these kids. Also, secretly, Daisy is trying to help Lincoln escape from the compound after he also agrees to be on the Accords because he just wants to leave. Because that is the plan in this episode. He wants to get out, so we need to help him get out. So eventually, Daisy does find a way to get him out. However, he has to do a little bit of trickery himself as well, which he does in order to open up the door. And then he's like, what's this thing for? It's to hit that guy. He hits him out of the way, and then he leaves. And then we get a bit of a stealth mission. Also, earlier in the episode, Simmons tells Coulson and Talbot, because, you know, all cards are on the table, about the fact that, well, you know what? Hive does have Kree blood because he's got Daisy. You know, you remember? You brought her back with Kree blood, kind of like what happened to you, good old-fashioned Coulson. Yeah, that's that's how he's got Kree blood. I also like how earlier in the episode, when we were capturing the watchdogs, that James was kind enough to provide us a little bit of a glimpse at Ghost Rider himself, because he grabs a chain, lights it on fire, and swings it around. It's like, oh, hey, look, it's next season. God, I can't wait for next season. I will say this, though, next season is my favorite season of the show. This is, in my opinion, the second best season of the show, because it deals with comic book stuff, and I like that kind of stuff. So eventually, Lincoln's turn to escape. He gets around everyone. However, there's one part where there aren't any cameras, but there's a Mac, because the base gets alerted about the fact that Lincoln has escaped. So Mac tries to stop Lincoln, but that doesn't really work, because Lincoln just blasts him off of him, and it's like, why do you have to be a bad guy now? Come on, Lincoln, don't be a bad guy. But he gets on the ship, because that was the only way out, and he flies away. However, the thing is that Daisy is not gonna meet Lincoln. Hive will meet Lincoln. So as the ship flies away and Daisy is officially out of the system, we can now put all cards on the table and be like, yeah, well, look who's here. It's Lincoln. He's still here. How nice. So while Lincoln is indeed still here, what left? Well, it was good old-fashioned Lash, because that was the plan. We're gonna have Daisy believe that Lincoln really wants to leave and join up with Daisy. And also, Lincoln always knew that Daisy wasn't gonna meet him because of the fact that it was always going to be Hive, which is true. And so this was a plan that they had devised, but in order to make it look real, no one could know. And the fact that Talbot is here makes it even better, because he has a big mouth, so he can really sell this. So the ship lands. Hive is ready to get Lincoln on his side. However, then the doors open and it's Lash, baby. Lash then fights against Hive. He does a pretty good job at blowing a hole through his chest, but that doesn't work on Hive, obviously, because the fact that Hive is the one who is basically made out of a billion parasites, so you gotta kill the whole thing. Or maybe it's one of those things where he is technically a billion parasites, but there's one host, so if you kill the host, all the other parasites will also die. I don't know how Lash works. He could kind of work like Cell, you know, where he was able to come back from like a singular cell. Who's to say? I don't actually really know how he works. But the fight happens. However, then the zombie guys, the weird guys, the human Inhumans, they start to attack Lash, and Lash easily gets them off of him. Then Daisy comes out very weakened and blasts him. However, then Lash has a new target, and that target is Daisy. So he walks over to her, and then he takes out Hive's stuff and kills it. Grabs Daisy, puts her in the Quinjet, and then gets impaled by James's fire chain and dies, sadly enough. But Daisy's able to escape the base and make it home after blasting everyone away. And now we got Daisy back, baby. And to end the episode, we learned what Hive stole, and it was actually a warhead, which I don't really know how different that is from either a nuke or a missile, but whatever, it's a warhead, and he is going to use that thing in order to spread the Inhuman maker cure thing that Hive made. Well, technically that Radcliffe made. He's gonna spread that all across the world and basically make a lot of Inhumans, at least those weird creatures. So that is going to be his plan. We got about 2 episodes left in order to stop him, so let's stop him. And to end the episode, Yo-Yo gives her necklace to Mac. And that is the necklace, if you remember, that we saw in the ship in space that blew up. So, who knows? Maybe Mac is going to die. God, please, don't say it ain't so. Don't turn this into The Walking Dead, where every black character that I like gets killed. Don't be like that. Don't make me feel like a racist again, just like The Walking Dead, alright? We already lost Trip. I don't want to lose Mac. So, episode 21 starts off with Daisy and Coulson being stranded on that other planet where Simmons was stranded on. Turns out, it was all all dream. And Hive attacks a silo because what I did not know is the fact that a warhead is just the tip of a nuke. I think it was actually a nuke, but it's the top part of it. So I didn't know that. I had no idea. You could have asked me, I wouldn't know, but now I do. And the team is flying with some trouble, and turns out they were flying underwater in order to stay under the radar, which is like, I mean, technically you could have just flown low. I've done that in GTA a couple of times, but underwater works as well, as long as it works, you know. And they are able to get there. And also Fitz uses some green screen in order to get some nuke codes that are the longest codes on the planet, by the way. But I do like the fact that he's just like playing around with the green screen stuff. Really funny. So a team, including 2 Inhumans, get to the silo, and they are wearing bomb vest because of the fact that, well, we're fighting Hive. If you get turned, boom. So they get in, and they are eventually, after typing in the longest codes on the planet, able to stop the missile from firing, meaning that Hive's plan has failed. And Hive is, for the first time, apparently very angry. And also, throughout this episode, Daisy thinks that she deserves the bad things that are happening to her for everything that she's done. And also, we see a little bit more of the necklace. It has a little bit of a meaning in this episode. But they make a trap for Hive. Hive comes into the trap, and he basically, his brain is now a bit fried, and he's reliving memories from all of the people that he's stolen, basically. He's reliving memories from Will, you know, the ones that appeared in the show. He is reliving that one memory from that brother of Malik, because of the fact that that is the only shot that we really have of him. And he's reliving a bunch of stuff from Mort, because he's been here since the beginning. So, you know, we could just have a lot of footage to pull from. It's just the other characters, they don't really have much footage to pull from, which I just find funny. But eventually he's like, steal the warhead. Just take the warhead, we'll think of a different plan. But we rescue everyone, thankfully enough, and even Radcliffe is rescued as well. However, Hive then appears, and he gets caught in one of those gel things. So we caught Hive. Alright, put him on like a ship and send him up off to the, like, tie him to a missile and shoot him into the sun. There you go. That's what I would have done. I would have tied that pod to like a missile and shot it straight into the sun. But they don't do that. They take it with him back to the base. Also, we learn after the mission is complete that when all is said and done, Lincoln is gone. We won't see him anymore. And that is going to be a sad thing. Also, the necklace falls out of Mac's pocket. And then later on, when Fitz has to go and check up on the containment unit. By the way, Fitz and Simmons are gonna work with Radcliffe in order to find a cure for those primitives, as they're called in this episode. But anyway, as Fitz goes over to check up on the containment unit, he picks up the necklace and puts it in his pocket. So now, by the way, I will say this, whoever has the necklace by the end of this season dies. Someone is going to die, and it's all connected to that necklace. No one is safe. But it now looks like Fitz is going to die. God, don't let it be him. And also, Mac goes over to Daisy, and he's like, I forgive you for all that you've done. Because right now, Daisy is basically a junkie. She has withdrawal symptoms from Hive. So as Fitz is looking at the containment unit, a package was delivered for parts, I guess. And that one opens up and turns a couple of guys into those zombie guys. And then everyone else also get turned into primitives as well. And turns out this was kind of part of a plan. I don't know if this is part of Hive's plan. This might have just been part of the backup of Hive's plan. Anyway, but we got a bunch of primitives. Fitz and one guy are able to escape, thankfully enough. But the primitives are in the room with Hive. So they smash open the containment unit. And Hive is free once again. However, he's still a little bit confused. I will say, by the way, that the actor Brett Dalton, he is the one who portrays Grant Ward and Hive, and he is doing a phenomenal job. I will say this, he is doing an actual fantastic job in the role. I really like him in this role as well. But anyway, he wakes up. However, he's still having memory problems, but Daisy's like, I told him everything. And then the conclusion is everything about Sever 1, and also the fact that Sever 1 can go way high, which means that he's found his new, technically, missile in order to, you know, spread his disease. So he wants to get the Zephyr 1. He gets inside, but he's still a bit confused because of the memory thing. And then Daisy gets into the pod and goes up to Zephyr 1, goes over to Hive, and she's like, take me back, please! You know, like a junkie. she will start using once again. We just have to keep her away from it for long enough. But sadly enough, the drugs have found her once again. Here we are, boys. After countless hours, we finally made it. Finale. So this episode starts off where the last one left off, obviously with Daisy being like, take me back! Give me back me heroin! And heroin can't get her back because apparently Lash made her immune. Yes, indeed, she is immune to Hive's influence, which I guess kind of means that she's the only one who can take him out. However, she fights him, but she can't beat him, sadly enough. He's just too powerful. He knows all of Grant Ward's moves. He knows everything. And also, you can stab him all you want. It just doesn't work. Meanwhile, the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents are all kind of hiding from the primitives, but they are in the vent. Apparently, these primitives, while they can't really, you know, do anything, they do still have memories and skills, but they can't really speak or really think for themselves. That is the only thing that they're really missing. But they do still have skills, so they went to the armory, grabbed the guns, and start shooting at Mac. But sadly enough, Yo-Yo takes a bullet for him. Yes, the whole Quicksilver maneuver that we all hated in Age of Ultron and made no sense. But let's be honest here, this one is a heartbeat, so at least it makes a little bit more sense why she got hit. Because even if she would have zipped over to the guy, Mac would have still taken the bullets. So the best thing to do is catch the bullets, but you can't always be fast enough. So Hive takes Sever 1, and we have a bit of a hiding horror thing with the whole primitives as the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents are trying to hide their best that they can. And also, let's cauterize a wound while we're at it. And Simmons actually cracks up the heat, because apparently these primitives see through infrared, which means that they're blind now since everything is hot. But there are two characters missing from the whole S.H.I.E.L.D. excursion, and that is May and Fitz. They do appear to be on Zephyr 1, and they take out one of the primitives. However, then they get ambushed by the telekinetic guy whose name I still do not know. But anyway, he ambushes them, takes out May, and then is ready to kill Fitz. But Fitz is like, I got a weapon on this ship that is gonna kill you. Alright, just let me put this thing down, and bam, invisible gun, baby. Yes, he has an invisi gun. So then they take May to the to a safe room, I guess, for now. And afterwards, we have the plan from Coulson. Coulson is going to go alone, and he's gonna make sure that the thing blows up above the atmosphere with Hive in it. He's basically going on a suicide mission. That's at least kind of the plan. However, the team doesn't listen. They don't know how to listen. So what they do instead is they go with him. So Zephyr 1 lands, Coulson gets out, and he has a confrontation with Hive. They talk for a little bit, and then Hive shows his true face. It's like, I'm gonna take you over. And they will have no idea. I'll tell that I've beaten myself, and then I will win. And also, he reveals his true face, which I get why they didn't use it a lot, because of the fact that that cost the CGI department probably a lot of money. However, turns out that Coulson picked up a little trick from his good old friend Blake, because he's using a hologram. He's not even there. So the team is in here, the whole team, by the way, and the plan is simple. We're gonna put the warhead on the Zephyr 1. Also, Lincoln has an encounter with James and gets part of his side blown, so that's fun. Anyway, we're gonna put the Warhammer on the Zephyr 1, and then that thing is gonna go on autopilot, fly above the atmosphere, and then blow up. Simple as that. It will save the world. At least Hive can infect more people. Also, Daisy got the necklace, so now she is on death row. However, while Coulson is explaining this, the funny part is Daisy is also kind of explaining this to Lincoln, even though she's not supposed to know that, because that was her vision. So Daisy then makes it her mission to be the one on that Quinjet and fly into the atmosphere and make sure that Hive blows up with it, kind of. I don't know. I actually forgot if Hive was officially part of the thing, but he will be. Let's be honest here. So Daisy takes off. She blasts the Warhammer onto the Quinjet with her powers. Carefully, obviously, not to let it blow up. However, Hive then drops in, and afterwards, Daisy sees a bit of a blood trail, and it turns out that Lincoln's in the driver's seat, that he blasts Daisy out of the plane and then takes off, and he used his powers in order to shorten it, because he's the one who also took the necklace, and he's the one who's going to die. When I said he was gone, that I meant that literally he is gonna die, and it hurts, man. So he flies up into the sky, and by the way, he is still of the belief that every Inhuman has a purpose, and that is 100% true, because it is his purpose to do this, because of the fact that he's the only one with the powers of electricity that can make sure that this works out. So they fly up into the sky. Again, they go into space. Daisy's like, come back to me! And The Lincoln tells her that he loves her, which is like, really, dude? Also, earlier, Mac had a shotgun axe. He finally got the boy finally did it. He got the shotgun axe. I'm so proud of him. But they go up into space. Hive and Lincoln have a little bit of a talk with each other. And then, boom, explosion happens. Lincoln is gone. R.I.P. the boy. And it's actually sad, because I like Lincoln. I like the character journey that he went on, because he was a bit of a hothead, but he found his place in afterlife. Then that all turned out to be kind of not what he believed, and then he didn't really have a place for himself. Then he joined the Secret Warriors, and he learned to control his temper, and it's a nice character moment, I will say that. He's not a perfect character, but I'm happy that he did what he did. But yeah, that's it. And then after that, 6 months later, apparently Daisy has left S.H.I.E.L.D, and she now goes by the name Quake, and apparently she's been fighting the good fight, and S.H.I.E.L.D is after her, and she goes over to the family of the guy that gives future visions. You remember that homeless guy? Charles, I think his name was. I don't really remember because I didn't put it in my notes, because I delete my notes when I talk about the episode, so I don't actually remember his name. But she gives the Robin bird to the girl and then walks off. S.H.I.E.L.D then arrives, and Daisy takes off into the sky with the powers, baby. And then to fully end it, let's introduce a character that's gonna be important more in the next season. We have Ada. Radcliffe has an AI named Ada, and he made a live model decor, or an LMD. We'll get more into that next season, and to be honest, that next season is even more relevant in today's age. And that's it. Finally, it's done. It's over. I don't know how long this video is going to be. I feel like it's gonna be about 2.5 hours, but I did it. I got through the whole season. Yes, and I love this season. Well, sometimes I do feel like they were trying to do a bit too much, and the cancelization of Most Wanted does kind of hurt the season, because it's like you're throwing away 2 great characters because you canceled the spin-off. That is the part that I don't really like, but I loved Hive as a villain in the show, because even at the end, he's like, I only wanted to do good things. You know, I wanted to stop wars. Yes, I was going to take them over, but it was gonna be for the better. I liked Hive. I love the actor Brett Dalton. He has done a phenomenal job as Grant Ward throughout this series, but playing Hive is such a different character because of the motivations, obviously, and I loved it. He is a fantastic actor, and he is going to be missed from this point forward, because this is the last time we see him, because, you know, boom, kind of exploded. Can't really bring him back after that unless it's flashbacks. But overall, I like the way that the actor portrayed Grant Ward and even Hive. Big fan. And also, I like the earlier stuff in the season with Rosalind and the ATCU and Hydra. But also, with this comes an end to Hydra in its entirety, unless there's a secret division that we don't know about. But overall, Hydra's gone. All the heads are gone. You know, Hive is gone. Everything that Hydra tried to do, the other Hydra, you know, 2 versions of Hydra. One was the Red Skull version and the Nazi version, and the other one was just bringing back potentially an ancient evil. But yeah, basically an ancient evil. I also like the look of the planet. Man, I love this season. And the fact that Lincoln dies, I think it's a good death for Lincoln. But overall, like I said, the season's great, and I would highly recommend it. So far, this is my favorite season, but I already gave the score in the review, and I'm not gonna do that here. But overall, I will say that this series just keeps getting better. And while I will say that the next season is my favorite season, that does not mean that the seasons after season 4 are bad, okay? They just don't do the comic book stuff that I like. This one does the Inhuman storyline really well, in my opinion. That was also set up in season 2. And then the next season does Ghost Rider, and also that second storyline that season does, because Ghost Rider, sadly enough, is not in the whole season. And then after that, it kind of goes away from the comic books and more does its own thing. And it's not bad. It is actually really good. It's just I like the comic book stuff. So like I said, this season is absolutely fantastic, and I actually did, like, today I actually recorded an open box. I actually wanted to put that off because of the fact, by the way, that open box was for the Age of Extinction Studio series, Optimus Prime, Dark of the Moon Q, and the Rainmakers, and also War for Cybertron Ironhide. So that one came out in June, because I'm actually recording this on June 5th. But I didn't want to do that because of the fact that I wanted to just finish up the season. That's how good the season was. It made me want to pass up on my most anticipated figure of the year, just to finish up the season. And I'm happy that I did. I actually was able to record it because I had less episode left than I thought. However, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I mean, this season most certainly is. And about that Inhuman stuff, yeah, like I said, this season did a really good job. But since I'm at the end of the spoiler talk and I'm about to do the outro, let me talk about what comes out next week. or at least next in the MCU talk. And that is the fact that, what if the Inhuman storyline was done terribly? And also, what if it was made by the showrunner of Season 1 of Iron Fist? Those two things seem to be blending perfectly together, because next time when we come back in this MCU talk, we are gonna be taking a look at the only thing in this whole MCU TV site that I really wish just was not part of it. Because I know the debate happens with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and stuff like that, where it's like, is it connected? It's like, dude, they talk about the Sokovia Accords, they mention Ultron, they literally have the info, they give the Avengers the info about where the scepter is in Avengers Age of Ultron. Coulson is from the Avengers. They mention the Avengers a lot of the times. Nick Fury, I think Maria appeared in the show as well, but also you had Sif appear. For crying out loud, how much more proof do you need that this stuff is all connected? However, next season is actually gonna be self-contained, because there are no movies really to connect to it, which I actually find funny. The next season is just, it takes place on its own in the timeline that I have decided, but it doesn't connect anything, because this is the last time that the MCU will fully connect. I mean, that's not entirely true. They do mention Thanos in Season 5, but yeah. This is connected to the MCU, but like the next thing that we're gonna be talking about is, I wish wasn't connected to the MCU. But we're gonna get potentially a reboot with Secret Wars, and to be honest, the only hopeful thing I have about that is the fact, that they can reboot it within the MCU with the new timeline, the Inhuman stuff, because I don't like that Inhumans portion. Because next time we're gonna be taking a look at the mini-series Inhumans, baby. I wanna die. Anyway, so with that being said, thank you all so very much for watching my long spoiler talk, and I hope you guys have enjoyed, and if you did, please like button, subscribe if you haven't done so already, turn on notifications, don't forget to check out my Let's Play channel, link in the description and at the end of the video. And like I said, next time we have hell, we have garbage, we have Inhumans. Bye!